who works for the Cooperative Party. The Council supports the Government's ambition to double the size of the cooperative and mutual sector and recognises the important contribution these businesses make to local communities and the economy. Through Business North Tyneside and cooperative and mutuals and social enterprise can access advice, growth and help to secure funding. Previous target programme supports 75 to help over 2 years, including specialist advice on cooperative and community-based business models. As part of the new economic strategy, the Council will establish a clearer picture of the cooperative sector in North Tyneside, develop a baseline against which progress can be measured, and consider how future business support can encourage further growth, particularly within the foundational economy. We'll also work with the North East Mayoral Strategic Authority and other regional partners to ensure cooperatives are properly reflected in the future business support programmes. What we'll also say is we now have our first ever Labour and Cooperative Prime Minister. I'm pretty sure Andy Burnham is committed to ensuring cooperatives right across the country and the Government deliver on that promise, Chair. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Johnson. Do you have a supplementary? No. Right, we now come to item 2 on the agenda, which is apologies. I've received apologies from Councillor Janet Hunter, Councillor Andy Newman, Councillor Paul Bunyan, Councillor Martin Murphy and Councillor John Harrison. Do we have any further apologies? Item 3, declarations of interest. Members are asked to declare any registrable or non-registrable interests and any relevant dispensations which have been granted in relation to any matters appearing on the agenda. Those members should also complete the card and return it to Democratic Services Officer. Item 4, minutes of the last meeting held on the 21st of May. Can I ask Council to confirm those meetings?
Chair,
Councillor Samuel.
There is a slight amendment to the minutes in that in the list of cabinet members appointed is incomplete. There are 3 missing. I've raised this to Democratic Services.
Right.
I was told I had to raise it here as well.
Okay, then amendments will be made. Thank you. Item 5, appointment of independent persons. We now move to, can I ask the Mayor to move the recommendation in this report, please?
Thank you, Chair. I'm pleased to present this report to Council. This report seeks Council's agreement to reappoint the reappointment of the authority's 3 independent persons, namely Dr. Stuart Green, Kerry Rofe and Daniel Entwistle. By law, the authority is obliged to have at least 1 independent person whose views are taken into account by the Standards Committee or the Monitoring Officer when deciding how to determine a code of conduct complaint made against an elected member in accordance with the authority's code of conduct for members and co-opted members. In July 2018, full Council decided that the authority should operate with 3 independent persons to ensure greater flexibility and the avoidance of any conflict of interest as explained in the report. And that as a matter of best practice, the independent persons would only undertake that role for a maximum of 10 years. Dr. Stuart Green was first appointed by Council to be an independent person in July 2018. Therefore, his term as independent person ends in July 2028. Both Kerry Rofe and Daniel Entwistle were appointed as such by Council in July 2022. Therefore, their respective terms as independent person do not cease until July 2032. All 3 independent persons have kindly agreed, subject to Council's approval, to be reappointed 1.2 of the report and agree to reappoint Dr. Stuart Green as independent person for a period of 2 years up to the 31st of July 2028, to reappoint Kerry Rofe and Daniel Entwistle as independent persons for a period of 4 years up to the 31st of July 2032. For the work undertaken by Dr. Stuart Green, Kerry Rofe and Daniel Entwistle, which is a vital part of the authority's duty to maintain high standards of conduct by its elected members. Thank you, Chair.
Do you have a seconder?
Second and reserve the right to speak, please, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Johnson. We go to the vote. Oh, any questions? Sorry. Any comments? Councillor Wallace.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm happy to support this report, and I would like to thank also the independent people for the work which they do. I think it provide a very valuable voice, Council deliberations. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Wallace. We move to the vote. All those in favour?
If all members have now voted, we'll close the vote.
Unanimous? Thank you. Right, we now move on to item 6. We now move on. I ask the Mayor to move the recommendations as set out in this report.
Thank you, Chair. I'm pleased to present this report to Council. The report asks Council to confirm the appointment of David Mason, currently the Authority's Head of Finance, as the Authority's Chief Finance Officer, sometimes referred to as a Section 151 Officer. This is a role which Mr Mason has undertaken since April 2026. Following a full recruitment process, which included the involvement of the Appointments and Disciplinary Committee, Mr Mason was appointed the Authority's Director of Resources with effect from the 1st of September 2026. As the report explains, by law, the Authority must make arrangements for a suitably qualified officer to have overall responsibility for the proper administration of the Authority's financial affairs. In this authority, that officer is known as the Chief Finance Officer. Following the departure of the previous Chief Finance Officer in April 26, the Chief Executive, as Head of Paid Service, exercised her delegated authority to appoint David Mason to be the authority's Chief Finance Officer to ensure continuity of that role until such time as the matter could be brought to the first ordinary council meeting for confirmation of that appointment. Mr Mason is a suitably qualified accountant and, as stated, has undertaken the role of Chief Finance Officer since April 2026. Council is therefore asked to agree the recommendations in paragraph 1.2 of this report. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Do we have a seconder?
Second, to reserve the right to speak, please, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Johnson, do we have any questions? Any comments? Can we move to the vote? Those in favour?
Members have all voted. We'll close the vote.
That's carried. Thank you. Move on to item 7. Yeah, but we'll note that in the minutes that you've. Thank you. Item 7. Can I ask the Mayor to move the recommendations as set out in this report? Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. The Authority is required to have in place a members' allowances scheme and to consider the recommendations of an independent remuneration panel when determining such a scheme. At its meeting on the 18th of September 2025, full Council, amongst other things, authorised the Director of Resources to consider and then recommend to full Council the level of remuneration that should be paid to the members of the independent remuneration panel. This report also recommends the level of remuneration to be paid to the Deputy Chair of the Audit Committee. Council is asked to agree the recommendations as set out in paragraph 1.2 of the report. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Do you have a seconder?
Second, to reserve the right to speak, please, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Johnson, do you have any questions? Any comments? Thank you. We'll move now on to item. Oh, the vote. Sorry. Yes. Can we move to the vote? All those in favour? Trying to rush myself through.
If all members have voted and they're content that their votes are showing, close the vote.
Thank you. It's unanimous. Thank you. Now on to question 8. Motions. We have 4 valid motions and that have been received and are included in the agenda. Details of the legal and financial implications of each of the motions have been circulated to all members prior to this meeting. I would like to remind members that the electronic voting system is available. Thank you. Motion 1. Can I invite Councillor Oliver to move the motion?
Thank you, Chair. I was going to make a rather different speech this evening, but members received further information today which significantly changes the context of this debate. We now know that the Director of Regeneration and Economic Development has today exercised his delegated authority and decided to make a non-immediate Article 4 direction. And I welcome the fact that a decision has finally been made, because it confirms something at the heart of the motion before us tonight. The evidence gathering has finished, concentrations have been identified, and the Council has concluded that Article 4 is justified. So there's now rather less between us than there might first appear. The question is no longer whether Article 4 should be introduced. The question is when it should take effect. And that brings me to the additional legal information circulated today. It contains two statements which I think members should consider carefully. We're told that the non-immediate direction made today is, quote, based on robust evidence. But we're also told that an immediate direction would be made, quote, without robust evidence. And this is where I genuinely want some help in understanding this distinction. What specifically within the evidence distinguishes the threshold for non-immediate versus the threshold for immediate? Because this has been one of the central questions I've been asking throughout this process. The difficulty is that the threshold appears to be a subjective assessment rather than an objective one. So it isn't X number of HMOs within Y number of streets over T time period. We're dealing with terms such as concentration, over-concentration, prejudice to proper planning, threat to amenity, and robust evidence. So the legal test is set out, but the assessment about where the evidence crosses the test.
Councillor Oliver, can I just ask you to keep to the content of your motion, please? I think you're going off your motion.
Well, I think it's pertinent, isn't it, because of the change today? I'm not straying away from points.
But the purpose of the motion isn't to stray away and pick out points why it's been changed.
Well,
it's not the
I
motion.
shall proceed, but I think that the point that I'm making is perfectly valid. You know, if you suddenly decide to move from, so our motion is about an immediate Article 4 direction, and then all of a sudden this afternoon, non-immediate is suddenly proposed. So this gets to the heart of what I'm saying.
So therefore your motion isn't the motion that you submitted.
I'm happy to proceed to continue to make some progress. Okay, so the legal test is set out, but the assessment of where the evidence crosses that threshold is much less tangible. So because members are being asked to accept that the evidence justifies Article 4, but does not justify immediate Article 4, I think it's reasonable to ask, where precisely is that line drawn? So for me, this remains very close to home, because I don't just represent Wallsend Central. I live in Wallsend Central, I know the area, and I know how important it is to residents that we protect the balance and character of the community in which we live. And this isn't just a Wallsend issue. The Council's evidence has identified concentrations elsewhere, including Howden, Churton and Percy-Main. The Council's own work recognises the potential effects associated with concentrations of HMOs, including residential amenity and the loss of family housing. I also understand why the market behaves as it does. So the previous question for this Council is whether it should simply accept the resulting concentrations or use the planning powers available to influence them. Speaking after the recent Makerfield by-election, Andy Burnham warned about parts of the country becoming what he called HMO Britain. And today's decision demonstrates that the Council itself believes additional planning control is now justified. So there's another question I'd like answered tonight. A non-immediate direction requires at least 12 months notice before it comes into force. So how many additional small HMOs does the Council forecast or expect will be created in Wallsend, Howden, Churton and Percy-Main during the next 12 to 15 months before additional planning controls take effect? Do we have a forecast? Do we have an estimate? Because if we don't, that is also relevant to the risk calculation too. There's another consequence to waiting. Further conversions during that period cannot subsequently be undone by Article 4 direction. So I don't dismiss the legal advice, far from it. I take it seriously. But ultimately, members are being asked to consider a subjective assessment. The council has decided that there is enough evidence, enough robust evidence for Article 4. Our motion asks whether that control should take effect immediately. And after today's announcement, the choice could hardly be clearer. Article 4 now, or Article 4 after at least another 12 months. We believe our
You've got
community...
30 seconds, Councillor Oliver. Thank
Yeah.
you.
We believe our communities should have that additional planning protection now, and I ask members to support them.
Thank you. Do you have a seconder?
I would like to second the motion and reserve the right to speak.
Thank you. I now invite members to Councillor Johnson.
Thank you, Chair. I've submitted an amendment that should have been sent to Democratic Services. Happy to speak now while it's being given out, or wait. You.
Just circulate it first and be put on the screen. Thank you. Members, a couple of minutes to read the amendment, and then I'll bring you back in, Councillor Johnson. Has everybody had time to read the amendment? No. Right, I think that's Councillor Johnson.
Thank you, Chair. Before moving to speech, just to explain the difference between non-immediate and immediate Article 4 direction. If this council today choose to do an immediate Article 4 direction, which does not have the evidence to suggest, A, we'd be open to legal challenge on the Article 4 direction itself, which could end up failing. But B, if any applicant in the next year put an application in for a HMO of 3 to 6 beds, and that was rejected by the planning committee, they could claim the full costs of what they would have spent on that, as well as the development costs they have lost. That is the financial risk of the authority. Like every member in this chamber, we want to protect our communities from the negative impacts that can arise when there's an over-concentration of HMOs. Where the evidence shows intervention is needed, the council should act. And this is exactly what the Labour administration has done. What is disappointing about the original motion is it demonstrates a fundamental misunderstanding of both planning law and what has actually happened over the last year. The motion suggests the council's failed to act. The reality is the exact opposite. Labour commissioned a borough-wide evidence gathering exercise in January. We reported back to Cabinet again in March, and that evidence gathering exercise has continued. And now the Director of Law and Governance has acted on those 2 Cabinet reports. The evidence has now been assessed, and this week, as I said, the Director of Regeneration and Economic Development, in consultation with myself as Deputy Mayor and the Interim Head of Law, made a non-immediate Article 4 direction covering those areas where the evidence demonstrates it justifies. The members opposite call for an immediate Article 4 direction, and that may sound decisive, but planning law is not about slogans, it's about evidence. The report is absolutely clear that the statutory test for an immediate direction has not been met. Ignoring that professional advice would not simply be reckless. It could expose this council to compensation claims from property owners, leaving local taxpayers to pay up the bill. The responsibility is to protect residents, not create unnecessary financial liabilities. This motion also seeks to extend the direction beyond the areas supported by the evidence, and again betrays the lack of understanding of how Article 4 directions work. National planning policy is clear. These directions must be based on robust evidence and applied to the smallest geographical area necessary. You cannot simply draw lines on a map because you want to. If you include the areas that cannot be justified by evidence, you increase the risk of legal challenge. And if that direction is successfully challenged, it is not the reform that will suffer the consequences. It will be the residents in those communities where the evidence clearly demonstrates protections are needed, because those protections could be delayed or even lost altogether. This is why we followed the proper process, commission the evidence, allow planning professionals to assess it, and delegate a decision in accordance with the council's constitution. And now we've introduced a legally robust, non-immediate Article 4 direction that can withstand scrutiny and proceed through consultation. That is good governance. It's also worth remembering that decision-making Article 4 direction is an executive planning function. That is why Cabinet delegate decision to the Director in the first place. This amendment therefore reflects what has actually happened, not what reform wishes has happened. It welcomes action already taken, it supports an evidence-led approach, and protects council from an unnecessary legal and financial risk. Most importantly, to give residents the best chance of securing lasting protections in those areas where they are generally justified. Our approach is not based on headlines, it's based on evidence. I urge members to support the amendment, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Johnson. Do you have a seconder? We need questions on the amendment? Debate on the amendment, should I say. Councillor, I've got your name. Bones, sorry.
Thank you, Chair. For almost a year, Labour have been telling us to wait for action on HMOs. Wait for January, wait for the evidence, wait for the next report. In September last year, I first raised concerns about concentrations of HMOs and asked about a borough-wide Article 4 directive in this chamber, and I was told it was coming. In November, I challenged the Deputy Mayor on the delay to that borough-wide directive, and I was told that there'd been no delay and that it would come forward in January. January came, but there was no Article 4 direction, just another decision to gather more evidence and report back in March. March came, there was still no Article 4 direction, just another report and another delegation to officers. Now we're here in July, and on the very day that this motion is being debated, the council have finally pulled their finger out and taken action. What a coincidence. I do welcome that Reform are finally bringing this motion forward, but I do ask, where have they been? Reform have had a presence on this council for over a year, and if this issue was so urgent, why has it taken until now for them to raise the issue in the council chamber? The Conservatives have been raising this issue since last September. We've asked the questions, challenged the delays, consistently called for a borough-wide Article 4 direction. So whilst Reform have finally caught up, unfortunately, it is too little too late. But turning back to Labour's approach to this, just this week, Councillor Tom Bailey came out against this motion in its original form, calling it unlawful, draconian and populist ideology. So I'll be interested to see how he votes on it tonight, given that for the last 12 months, his own Labour administration has been allegedly working towards this exact point. And we've also heard from Councillor Bailey the suggestion that somehow it's an attack on young people. So again, he must be furious at the position that his own cabinet have taken on the issue. No one thinks that there isn't a place for HMOs, especially for young people moving in with their friends, but it makes sense when another family's home is converted into an HMO, the council should have the ability to decide whether it's appropriate for that location. That's not extreme, it's literally the function of a planning authority. It is, however, disappointing that what has been published today doesn't go further. We were promised back in September a borough-wide directive, just like South Tyneside Council has issued in November last year. They introduced an immediate Article 4 direction because they recognise the same concerns that our residents raise with us every week: parking pressures, noise, waste, antisocial behaviour, and the gradual erosion of established communities. But instead, in North Tyneside, we get action which will take 12 months to even come into force, and then, even then, will only apply to 8 wards, not even all of the wards that were named in the initial reform motion. The Cabinet member will surely know the knock-on effects of this. If you need planning permission for an HMO in North Shields, but you don't need planning permission for an HMO over the road in Preston, then landlords will flood into the areas that aren't included in this direction, where there isn't regulation. This action will do nothing but push more HMOs into Preston, Tynemouth, St Mary's, New York, Battle Hill, Wallsend North, while having no regard for the impact on those communities. This should have been a borough-wide directive. That's what we were promised last year, and it should have been identical to the one in South Tyneside. It can be done, but unfortunately, this Labour mayor doesn't have the will to protect all of our borough, just some of it.
Thanks, Councillor Bones. Councillor Bailey.
Thank you, Chair. I suppose I'll start by apologising to the Chamber that my thoughts are not quite as ordered as they would normally be speaking here. I'm speaking from notes prepared a couple of days ago, and I've been understandably rather distracted the last couple of days. Shared homes are primarily occupied by young people. When we talk about houses of multiple occupation, we are talking primarily about the welfare of young people. The reason I became a councillor was to help, protect other families in the borough from things that, had negatively affected my family over the years. That's the whole reason I'm here. I'm unashamedly a Tynemouth dad. I'm fiercely protective of my own kids. And now as a councillor, I'm fiercely protective of the welfare of other young people across our borough. There simply is no justification for over-regulation, okay? Now, I lived in shared homes in my early 20s on and off. My daughter's done the same and still lives in one today, not in our borough. This is my own child that you're talking about when you're looking to dehumanise the people who live in this type of accommodation. Frankly, I'm not quite sure how to respond to that. My son may well leave home in a year's time and be looking for somewhere to live. Personally, I think, a shared home with a couple of pals would suit him down to the ground. That's not a declaration of interest. That's a declaration of looking after the people that we are supposed to be looking after. You imagine a situation where a 22-year-old walks into a letting agent with a couple of friends looking for somewhere to live, and the response is, well, yeah, we could let you this flat, but we'd have to convince the landlord to apply for planning permission, and then you'd need to who's going to pay for the 8-week period until that planning consent goes in? That's why talking about a borough-wide declaration, given that we now have the evidence, does not make sense. If there was an enormous volume of evidence, I worked as a chart surveyor at one point in time. I had to actually manage portfolios of properties like this after the bank recession back in 2008. I've seen people living in appalling conditions, quite frankly. I completely accept the fact that we need to regulate, but we need to regulate in accordance with the evidence. Otherwise, the alternative to that is we're hitting the very people that we are supposed to be here to look after. I think I'm almost tempted to kind of leave it there, really. That is the reality. We need to be careful, because if we get this wrong, if we follow exactly what Councillor Bones is asking, by just sweeping regulations across the borough which bear no resemblance whatsoever to the evidence base, then real people lose out, exactly the people that we are supposed to be looking after. The fact is, it's tougher today for young people than it was when I was in my 20s. In lots of different areas, housing as well. Young people are asked for parental guarantees, family guarantees when they rent a property. In a way,
you've got 30 seconds.
Brilliant. So I'll finish by paying tribute to our outgoing Director of Regeneration, John Sparks, who's overseen the really necessary and robust technical work which will support the declaration that's been made, that is reflected in this amendment, which I'll be supporting. Myself and John have not always agreed perfectly, but always agreeably. And I suppose it's fitting that I'm speaking in what I think is the last time he'll be in this chamber, commending the work he's undertaken, because the quality of that work will ensure that people like my own children are not disadvantaged by this kind of extremist talk we're hearing from the other side of the chamber. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Bailey. Do you have any further comments? You have the right to reply, Councillor Oliver, yeah.
Yeah, so I accept what Councillor Johnson has put in parts of this amendment, but I still keep coming back to a point I made in my original speech. Robust evidence, can we please define it? Because that's one of the questions I've been asking for the 6 weeks since I've been elected. If you know what you need to gather in order to meet a threshold, then you can either gather that evidence or it misses it. At the minute, to me, it just feels like we're just hiding behind a bit of legalese around the word robust, and I don't think that's good enough for our residents.
Thank you, Councillor Oliver. Can we go to the vote on the amendment? Those in favour? Yeah, Conti's had the right.
I'd reserve the right to reply.
It's the mover of the motion has the right to reply. Right, so the vote on the amendment.
If all members have now voted and are content the vote is showing, we'll close the vote.
36 for the amendment and 20 against, so the amendment is carried. We now need to speak on debate on the substantive motion, the new motion. The amended motion now becomes a substantive motion. So we need to speak on the amended motion. Councillor Bones.
Thank you, Chair. I wish to move a further amendment, if possible.
Have a seconder? We're just getting copies. If you'd like to sing and dance amongst yourself, that's fine.
Cabinet has forgotten from today's directive. Councillor Bailey said in his speech that real people will lose out if there is a borough-wide directive. But that isn't the case, because if the HMOs that are being proposed are as appropriate as he says they are, if they are going to young people getting on the housing ladder or whatever, they will have no problem getting planning permission. It's as simple as that. If the HMO application is appropriate for the location, it will get planning permission. The whole idea of Article 4 is not to stop HMOs, it's to make sure they're appropriate for the areas in which they're being put. And we don't get over concentrations and we don't get them in places where we already have problems. So I can't see why 12 out of 20 of the borough's wards have been left out of today's directive, and that's what this amendment tries to change. I also agree with one of the colleagues earlier who spoke about the immediacy of the Article 4 directive. When South Tyneside introduced theirs in November last year, it was an immediate directive and it was borough-wide. That hasn't ended them up in a legal challenge. In fact, if you look on recent news articles, it's meant that they have greater control. Some HMOs have still been approved in South Tyneside, but where you've got petitions of 500 residents saying they don't want an HMO here, the planning committee at South Tyneside has had the ability to say no. And that is something that under Labour's actions today, we won't have for more than half of the borough. And that's what this amendment tries to fix. So it means that there will be protections for all parts of North Tyneside, not just the 8 areas that the Cabinet have picked effectively at random. And it means that we're not going to be pushing the problem around. If people want to convert residential houses into HMOs in North Tyneside, not a problem at all, but you have to get planning permission. That's all this amendment does, and it means it comes into force immediately. It would come into force immediately should the mayor agree it. I can't see why South Tyneside can do it and we can't. So very pleased to propose this amendment.
Do you have a seconder? We're done to speak to the amendment. Right, can we debate the amendment? Councillor Gray.
I'm failing to understand why the Conservatives take an issue with getting this done right. As Councillor Johnston's already outlined, we are going to do the action set out in the non-immediate Article 4 directive and doing it properly. I want to highlight a key section that is removed in this Conservative amendment. An immediate Article 4 direction would not be appropriate in light of the evidence gathering exercise, which concluded that the statutory test for such a direction was not met, and that doing so could expose the council to compensation claims from property owners, create an unnecessary financial risk for local taxpayers, whereas a non-immediate Article 4 direction avoids that liability. Including areas within an Article 4 direction where the evidence does not demonstrate that such restrictions are justified risks legal challenge. Such challenge could jeopardise the implementation of the direction, leaving communities where the evidence clearly supports intervention without the protections they would otherwise receive. National planning policy requires Article 4 directions to be supported by robust evidence base and applied only to the smallest geographical area necessary. If we followed the path outlined for this council in Reform's original motion and the amendment by the Conservative group, this authority would be open to the risk of property owners seeking a quick payday by submitting HMO paperwork when they never would have intended to make that decision previously, as well as those property developers that are already seeking to create HMOs. I want to be clear, Chair, I would rather taxpayers' money isn't siphoned off to property developers due to the motion moved by the Reform group and the actions the Conservative group wish to undertake with this new amendment. Our amendment, as already agreed by the Council, takes the reality of planning law into account whilst not creating a legal and financial liability for the authority. Our approach will create lasting change that gives our communities the protection they need.
Thank you, Councillor Gray. Anybody else like this? Councillor Johnson.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Bones' amendment is factually incorrect. South Tyneside might well propose an Article 4 direction. If you go on their website to look at it, it goes street by street. It's not applied to every street in the borough, Councillor Bones. I am looking at it in front of me on the South Tyneside Council website. Good to see you such an expert, as well as councils in the Midlands, as well as South Tyneside these days as well, Chair. But, Chair, this is, once again, opposition proposing stuff that would be, you know, potentially challengeable and cost the council thousands and thousands of pounds if found. We have took the reasoned approach, followed by evidence. We'll be voting against the motion. Can I move straight to vote? Move straight to vote, Chair.
Councillor Wallace is asked to come in. Councillor Wallace.
Thank you, Chairman. I think that the amendment would ensure that the whole borough was treated fairly and equitably. I think if only certain areas were covered by such a direction, we would risk having a problem, if indeed problem it is, like a toothpaste tube effect squeezed right across to other areas that would not be covered by the direction. Now, the Deputy Mayor has made much of the risks to the authority, but I think that the legal advice which we have received today indicates that, in fact, by making the decision today for the non-immediate direction, the administration has, in fact, exacerbated the situation, because if you look at the legal advice, it says to make an immediate direction without notice in the absence of evidence, particularly now that the director has made a decision on behalf of the authority. I think perhaps it would have been wiser of the administration to wait until we'd had the discussion and debate in the council chamber this evening before any direction was issued. If the situation is now worse, particularly now that the director has made a decision, it seems very wrong that the decision has just been made so very recently following this matter being brought to the council. Thank you.
Councillor Bortoli.
Thank you, Chair. Start by echoing the points of Councillor Wallace. It was completely inappropriate for this direction to be issued just 6 hours before this meeting. It didn't give the members here sufficient time to even look or consider the effect of this direction on the motion. And I hope we won't see that kind of gamesmanship again from the side opposite. It really did not help tonight's debate. But I think the glaring mistake that the side opposite seem to be making is that they're going to create a postcode lottery. They've clearly spent time studying where there are issues across the borough and identified those areas and listed them. But the wards like Battle Hill, Wallsend North, Tynemouth, Preston, who are excluded, all of these areas are just going to get these HMOs pushed into those areas. We've identified there are problems with HMOs. So it in effect creates a two-tier borough, rather than the suggestion made by Councillor Bones, where we immediately do a borough-wide directive. We're going to end up creating one side of the street, you can have an HMO, and on the other side of the street, you can't. And surely that can't be fair to the residents of certain wards across this borough.
Thank you. Councillor Bortoli. Councillor Graham, sorry.
Could I just address that? We already have a two-tier system. The areas of Wallsend Central, North Shields, Howden, the areas identified, there already is a two-tier system. All the HMOs are confined to certain areas. So it is a two-tier system. That's the reality. I live in Wallsend Central. I've got 2 HMOs on my street. I'm guessing you haven't in your street.
Anybody else would like to speak to the amendment? Right, Councillor Bones, you have the right to reply on the amendment.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to come back.
Order, Chair.
Sorry.
There's the substantive motion is my motion. I have the right to reply on the amendment, not Councillor Bones. Thank you very much.
Sorry. Yeah, so go to the vote. Anything further to say, Councillor Johnson?
Yes, Chair. I think Councillor Graham ironically got the point nailed on the head. We have to act where there's a concentration of HMOs. We can't act where there's currently no HMOs. I think most people forget that this is not the only laws governing HMOs. Minimum space sizes apply to HMOs, and the reality is the vast majority of property in this borough would not be able to meet minimum space standards HMOs. So there's zero risk in almost most of the borough for HMOs. So this is not the only law. The risk is not there. The experts in South Tyneside, as Councillor Bones tried to claim earlier, there is not in every street. I'm looking at the list of streets, and again, because every property is not eligible HMO due to minimum space sizes, it goes Nelson Avenue, South Shields, 1 to 19. It goes through various different numbers. It misses numbers out. It goes through various different streets. HMO, the Article 4 on South Tyneside does not apply to every house in South Tyneside. As well as some of the ones that have been rejected in South Tyneside recently, we will see how they go through the courts when those developers, if they choose to take South Tyneside to court. But also, as a planning authority, I don't think South Tyneside is the one we should be following our lead from. They famously did not submit their local plan, and the Secretary of State has intervened on a number of times. So as a local planning authority, I'd rather follow the advice of the fantastic officers in North Tyneside who run one of the best rated planning authorities in the country, rather than South Tyneside. Sure.
Thank you, Councillor Johnson. Now we move to the vote.
Chair, on a point of personal clarification, as it was named in Councillor Johnson's remarks, South Tyneside has a borough-wide Article 4 restriction, which allows the council to withdraw permitted development rights throughout the borough and require planning permission, as per South Tyneside Council's website. Thank you.
Councillor, we move to the vote. Right. Those in favour of the amendment?
Everyone has now voted and is confident that their votes are shown correctly. We'll close the vote.
No against, 12 for and no abstentions. So the amendment is defeated. And I move to go to the vote. Oh, we've just done the vote, haven't we? Oh, yes, God, I'm lost out where I am with substantive. Right. Now the amended motion is defeated. So we're now back to the substantive motion, which was the original amended motion, which is now the substantive motion. Right. Yes.
On the screen so everyone's clear.
Yes. Right, so we're voting.
I just ask if everyone can still debate this if they want to.
Right, has everybody finished debating on the original motion, which was amended, which is now the substantive motion now? We're finished debating on that. If not, can we go to the vote now, please? Those in favour?
I would just motive. I'm a councillor for Wallsend North, and as stated, I live in Wallsend Central. I would like to ask, why are the most heavily affected communities being asked to wait for at least a further year, probably more, for protections to take place? Wallsend, the evidence is extremely clear. Almost 50% of all HMOs throughout the whole of North Tyneside are in Wallsend Central. To me, the fact that Labour Council appears more concerned about upsetting property developers than protecting the working class people of the affected areas of North Tyneside, deeply disturbing. A non-immediate Article 4 means that these property developers basically have the opportunity to make hay and actually speed up turning Wallsend and other affected areas into HMO Britain. And can I just make one final last point? We're talking about throwing up the spectre of legal costs. The most highly costly legal challenge to an Article 4 was for a non-immediate, not an immediate. Thank you.
Councillor Gray?
This motion as amended is about doing this properly, making sure that taxpayers' money isn't siphoned off into the pockets of property developers, and making sure our communities get the lasting change they need and the protections that comes with, rather than firing off from the hip and doing something that will end up in court, end up with money being paid to property developers, and the protection, as already said, will not be given to the communities that need it. If Reform wants to go on those flights of fancy, that's for them, but this authority shouldn't be dragged through processes that will end up with our residents not getting that protection.
Thank you, Councillor Gray. Any further speakers?
Right reply, Chair.
Right, the reply, John.
Thank you, Chair. I've still don't get Councillor Graham's point. Wallsend Central is very much included for an Article 4 direction. He's right, there's a high concentration there, and that's why we've included it there. Councillor Gray, Councillor Marshall and former Councillor Grayson have been pressing me on doing so for a long time, and we've made sure we've acted to ensure that Wallsend General will get Article 4 protections, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Right, we now go to the vote.
Excuse me. As I was named, can I respond?
You've had the right to speak.
I was named.
Pardon?
I was named by Councillor Johnson. Doesn't that give me the right
No.
to reply?
No. No. Can we go to the vote, please? Those in favour of the motion?
If all members have now voted, I'll close the vote.
Motion's carried with 36 for, 20 against. Thank you. Now move on to motion 2. And can I invite Councillor John Johnson to move the motion?
Thank you very much, Chair. Everyone in this chamber knows that what High Borrans means to generations of young people from North Tyneside. It's created lifelong memories, built confidence and given thousands of children opportunities they never otherwise would have experienced. Nobody disputes its value. But tonight's debate is about something even bigger than High Borrans. It's about whether this Labour administration has been straight with the people of North Tyneside. Having served on the Budget Scrutiny Committee, I went back through the papers to understand exactly how we reached this point. What I found was deeply troubling. The proposed closure of High Borrans was never placed clearly and honestly before residents as one of the most significant decisions facing this authority. Instead, it was buried within wider budget and asset discussions, where it was far less likely to attract the scrutiny such as this important decision deserved. Residents were consulted on the budget, but they were never asked the one question that actually mattered: should High Borrans remain open? That was the question parents wanted answered. That was the question schools wanted answered, but Labour never asked it. Instead, many residents only discovered what was happening after the closure had effectively been decided. Let's call that what it is. It's not meaningful consultation. It's not openness. It's a sham. A council is entitled to make difficult decisions, is entitled to explain the evidence and to make its case. What it is not entitled to do is to avoid asking the public a direct question and then claim they were properly consulted. That is not political leadership. This is political cowardice. Members know I don't come in here to indulge in cheap point scoring, but I'm genuinely appalled by what has happened. The Conservative group is appalled. Residents across North Tyneside are appalled, and I suspect some Labour members opposite are privately appalled as well. They know residents deserved a genuine voice. They know this process falls well short of the openness people had every right to expect. Yet many will sit on their hands tonight, not because they believe the process was right, but because they're too frightened to challenge their own administration. Every Labour councillor faces a simple choice. Will they stand up for the people who elected them, or will they simply follow the party whip? We've now seen the legal and financial implications prepared by officers. Accept that generally confidential legal or commercial matters sometimes have to be considered in private. Nobody disputes that, but confidentiality cannot become a shield which political accountability should disappear. Those reports do not explain why residents were never directly asked whether High Borrans should remain open, nor do they demonstrate that every credible alternative was fully explored before closure became the preferred option. That is why we are demanding a full cross-party inquiry, not requesting one, not politely suggesting one, but demanding one. The inquiry must answer some very simple questions. Who made this decision? When was it made? What alternatives were generally explored? And why were residents denied an open debate before the outcome had effectively been settled? If the Mayor and Cabinet genuinely believe they have acted properly, then they should welcome this scrutiny. If the process was sound, let it be examined. If every alternative was explored, publish the evidence. If the consultation was genuine, prove it. And before members cast their vote tonight, I urge them not to water down this motion simply to make it more comfortable for their own administration. This is not about protecting political reputations, it's about restoring public confidence. If you believe the process was right, support a pause, support an inquiry, and let the facts speak for themselves. because the louder Labour members argue against a cross-party inquiry, the more residents will inevitably ask a simple question: what are they trying to hide? Tonight, every councillor's vote will be recorded. Every member must choose: do you support openness, accountability and an honest investigation? Or do you support closing ranks and leaving those serious questions unanswered? The people of North Tyneside deserve the truth. They deserve accountability. And they deserve to know exactly where every councillor in this chamber stands. Tonight we'll have a choice. We can press ahead with a decision that has divided our borough, or we can pause, take stock and do the right thing. We can pause the closure of Highborrans, work together across party lines to explore every credible alternative and establish a full cross-party investigation into how we have reached this point. That is what the people of North Tyneside deserve. I commend this motion to Council.
Thank you, Councillor Johnson. Do you have a seconder?
I'll second and reserve the right to speak.
Right, can we debate the motion? Councillor Ross.
Thank you. Chair, I support this motion. For me, this isn't really a debate about Highborrans. It's a debate about scrutiny, transparency and taxpayers' money. We're told Highborrans must close because money is tight, usage has fallen and future investment is needed. Those are legitimate concerns. But before we permanently lose a community asset that has served generations of children since 1967, surely we should be asking some very basic questions, as has just been mentioned. Could usage be improved? Have all schools been fully engaged? Have partnership options been exhausted? Has external funding been explored? Have all alternatives genuinely been considered? Because once Highborrans is gone, it's gone. And that's why scrutiny, as has been mentioned several times, is so important, and it's why it matters, Chair. We've just seen another example of this. Only 21 days ago, the school adjudicator rejected the Hazelwood proposal outright. Within those same 20, it is because it's to do with taxpayers' money.
It is not relevant. Thank you.
Okay, so on one hand, we are told the public money is so scarce, we must close Highborrans. On the other hand, public money has already been committed to legal action. So who authorised this? You know, the scrutiny that's gone on, what alternatives were considered? What scrutiny took place before taxpayers' money was committed? I'm not asking members to debate Hazelwood. I'm asking members to recognise the principle. If we are prepared to close Highborrans because money matters, then we should apply exactly the same scrutiny to every significant spending decision the authority makes. The same questions, the same challenge, the same accountability. Good scrutiny protects taxpayers' money, good scrutiny protects community assets, and good scrutiny prevents expensive mistakes. For that reason, I fully support this motion and urge members to support giving Highborrans this scrutiny and the rest of the council members it deserves before a decision of this magnitude becomes irreversible. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Ross. Councillor O'Keefe.
Thanks, Chair. Tonight I'll be supporting the motion on Highborrans because my first duty is to the people who elected me. You trust me to be their voice, to ask difficult questions and stand up for them when it matters most. This is about more than Highborrans, it's about trust. Trust that when our residents speak, we listen. Trust that their concerns are taken seriously. Trust that the decisions we make are open, honest and transparent. Our new Prime Minister, Andy Burnham, has spoken about the importance of listening to people. I believe he's absolutely correct, and I believe our Prime Minister's words should guide us here in North Tyneside also. Highborrans is an important community asset. Once it's gone, it's gone. So we have a responsibility to think beyond today and protect Highborrans for future generations. Every one of us in this chamber was elected to serve. Leadership is not simply about following instructions or going along with the majority. It is about listening, asking difficult questions and having the courage to stand up for what we believe is right, even when that means standing alone. I believe elected representatives must always be guided by the people who put their trust in them. Tonight, I choose my residents, I choose the communities I was elected to represent. And I hope that together this evening we can find a positive way forward, one that does everything possible to save Highborrans, but ensuring that the process and every decision made are subject to full transparency, openness and accountability. Because we truly want to listen to our communities, which is to save Highborrans, and all elected members this evening need to support this motion. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor O'Keefe. Do you have any further speakers? Councillor Wallace.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm happy to support this motion, and I agree with the comments that have been made about accountability and the need to protect taxpayers' money to ensure that everything is spent wisely. I appreciate that there are a lot of pressures on public funds, and therefore it's right that there is appropriate scrutiny. There must have been in the budget for the current financial year provision for Highborrens to stay open for this financial year, which does not end until the spring of 2027. And therefore, I think that the decision to close Highborrens in November of this year is premature. That should be paused, and that would enable plenty time for the complete review and the points made in the motion, the complete review, the details of all the options considered, and further discussions of the options available. There's plenty of time available to do that, and I have therefore no hesitation in supporting this motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Wallace. Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Chair. I'll also be supporting this motion. When we look at the figures that we've heard about the reduction in the use of Highborrens, I think we really need to be asking why. Why aren't the schools using it? Is it because of the condition of the building, the condition of the place? From what I understand, there's been a complete lack of investment in what I see as an absolute gem that this council is the steward of. I don't see us as the owner of it. We are here to steward this establishment for the children of this borough. And since I've come into the council, I look at last year, one of the biggest talking points that we had in this chamber was the closure of schools. We can't disguise the fact that we talked about mergers. It was closures, and it's money. And you look at Highborrens and how many people in this room have used that facility, and look at all the questions we're getting about it. It's incredible. And just to close it, the way that we're doing is completely unacceptable. We cannot close. My belief is the people in this room, there is no way we cannot find a way to finance, to refurbish Highborrens and to preserve it for future generations of children that are coming through. And we hear constantly in this place about looking after our children. I go back to the values and the priorities that this place has. The last plan, we call ourselves a family-friendly authority. We look at, just a better start in life and better lives for all. How we can even be considering closing this place is beyond me. Yes, it's money, but we need to start looking at the value of things as opposed to the cost of things. How do we bring partners in to run this facility for the people for especially the children of this place? I don't know. I look at last year. We got £6.6 million bunts from the airport. Where is it? Are we selling this to protect the bottom line next year? Is that what we're doing? Because it feels like it. Sorry, you were going to say something. Oh, sorry. Okay. So I think one way or another, we have to find a way to preserve this facility. For me, it's completely unacceptable for future generations of children within this borough that we close it down. And again, I would go back to, the two big debates that I've been involved in here have been around children and closures of facilities. And I think that is completely against what we should be standing for. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Smith. Councillor Early.
Thank you, Chair. I would begin by saying that as part of the Cabinet which took the decision to close Highborrens, this was an extremely difficult decision for both myself and my Cabinet colleagues. We are well aware of the fantastic resource that the centre has been for generations of North Tyneside children and young people, and the fondness in which it is held by many residents. However, as Cabinet members, we are charged with having to weigh the affection for the centre against the current financial position and the level of use by North Tyneside children. we have a wider duty of fiscal responsibility to the residents and council taxpayers of North Tyneside. The plain facts are that of a cohort of 9,300 North Tyneside pupils eligible to attend the centre, currently only 1,225 do so. Many North Tyneside schools already choose to use other outdoor education providers. The majority of pupils who attend the centre are not now from schools in North Tyneside. The centre is running at a loss and the council has to subsidise it to the tune of almost £190,000 per year. And in effect, much of that money goes towards subsidising visits from children from schools outside of the borough. I do not think it is right that residents of North Tyneside should continue to be asked to subsidise visits by children from other local authorities. In addition, the centre would require capital investment in the region of £3.4 million to ensure it remains viable. That money would have to be borrowed, placing a further long-term financial burden on North Tyneside residents at a time when there are already financial challenges for the authority. Given these facts, and after consideration of alternatives to closure, I believe the decision to close the centre is the correct one, and I will not be supporting this motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Early. Councillor Bell.
Sorry. Thank you to the Conservatives for bringing this motion and for giving us all the opportunity to discuss it. The Green Party believes in finding solutions and working collaboratively to improve the lives of North Tyneside residents, especially with a focus on our young people. As a teacher and as a parent, I know firsthand the value of outdoor education and the positive impact it has on young lives. I have been disappointed by the way in which this issue has been progressed in the council, whereas it seems like it was effectively buried. Highborrens was not named in the report in the forward plan. Instead, it was titled Outdoor Education, and press and public were excluded from the Cabinet meeting. Neither was it made clear in the budget papers that this was part of the savings being proposed by the council. We were left to read the minutes of the Cabinet meeting instead of being formally notified, which meant it was too late for us to push for a call-in. As a group of two, we need to find supportive colleagues to push for such a measure, and we feel that the whole process did not allow for proper scrutiny and response. We appreciate the financial implications of keeping the centre open, but it could at the very least have been open for discussion rather than being presented as a fait accompli. We are in a climate crisis, a mental health crisis, and an obesity crisis. All of these are going to adversely affect the lives of our children and young people growing up in North Tyneside today. As adults in position of power, we must prioritise any resource which creates a positive experience for future generations. And Highborrens is exactly the kind of place which we know has offered that. This is a precious resource which should be given the very best chance to be retained as an asset for the future. There may be creative solutions which we as a community should have the chance to explore fully before such a consequential decision is taken.
Thank you, Councillor Bell. Councillor McGuinty.
Thank you. I'd like to support this motion on a personal level. When my son was around 8 or 9 years old, he attended an outdoor education centre with his school. It wasn't just a school trip, it was a real adventure. He came home with so much more confidence, endless stories to tell, and memories that have stayed with him ever since. Seeing the positive impact that experience had on him makes me appreciate just how valuable centres like Highborrens are. In today's world, where so many young people spend time indoors, centres like Highborrens are more important than ever. They give children the chance to challenge themselves, make new friends, gain confidence, and experience the outdoors in a way that many otherwise never would. We owe it to future generations to do everything we can to explore every possible option before allowing such an asset to be lost. I hope members across the chamber will support this motion.
Thank you, Councillor McGuinty. Councillor Hallway.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, like many members in this chamber, I know personally what Highborrens has meant to generations of children and families. Nobody on this side of the chamber questions the memories made there or the value outdoor education has.
But this debate cannot simply be about nostalgia. It has to be about whether North Tyneside Council can responsibly continue to own and operate a residential outdoor education centre over 100 miles away in the Lake District when there are 5 within 70 miles of North Tyneside. And before anyone suggests this council has neglected Highborrans, let's deal with that myth straight away. Over the not too distant past, the council has invested more than £900,000 in the centre, including over £600,000 in recent years on essential repairs and maintenance to keep it operating safely. The problem is not a lack of investment. The problem is that, despite those significant investments, the building now requires around £3 million more simply to remain operational. The motion asks us to reserve Cabinet's decision, but it never answers the most important question: how do we pay for it? The centre already costs the council around £250,000 every year because its income does not cover its operating costs. If the council borrowed the money needed for the repairs, once you add the borrowing cost to the existing subsidy, North Tyneside taxpayers would be funding well over £500,000 every single year just to keep Highborrans open. So I have a straightforward question for every councillor supporting this motion. What would you cut to pay for it? Adult social care? Children's services? Road repairs? Libraries? Thanks, I'm speaking. Parks? Because there isn't a spare £500,000 sitting in the council budget. Every pound spent subsidising a residential outdoor education centre in Cumbria is a pound that cannot be spent on the services our residents rely on here in North Tyneside. If you want to keep Highborrans open, you need to be honest with your residents. Tell them which services you would reduce in order to fund it. We've also heard claims that this is an essential service. The evidence says otherwise. Highborrans has a capacity for 2,304 pupils every year, yet only 1,255 North Tyneside children now attend that, possibly due to others attending the 5 that are within nearer location. Almost half of our schools no longer use a centre. That isn't because they don't value outdoor education. It is because they are choosing other providers that are closer to home, much more affordable for families, and still provide excellent outdoor learning education. And the important point in this is, there is already significant spare capacity within the outdoor education sector across the North East and surrounding region to accommodate every single child within North Tyneside who currently does attend Highborrans. No child will ever lose the opportunity to experience outdoor education because of this experience. What changes is where those experiences take place, not whether they take place. Another important point that is often forgotten: a significant proportion of those attending Highborrans come from outside North Tyneside. So our taxpayers are paying for their outdoor education for children in other local authorities at a time when councils across the country are facing enormous financial pressures. I simply do not believe that this is a responsible use of public money. We've also heard criticism of the process, so let's deal with that. Cabinet considered a detailed report setting out the financial, operational and legal position. Because that report contained exempt financial information and matters relating to employees, it was dealt with in accordance with the Constitution and employment law. Members then did have access to the report during a call-in period. Once employees had been informed of the decision, the report was published in full. That is exactly how exempt decisions are supposed to be handled. The motion also calls for another review of options, but Cabinet has already considered those options. Alternative delivery models and transfer arrangements were examined before the decision was taken. Now the decision is public. Decisions are taking place with organisations in the outdoor education sector. But let me be absolutely clear. Any future proposal must be financially viable. It must cost North Tyneside Council taxpayers nothing, and it cannot rely on ongoing council subsidy. It cannot expose the council to further borrowing, future maintenance, liabilities and additional financial risk. If a credible organisation can demonstrate that it can purchase the site, operate it sustainably and secure its long-term future without costing the people of North Tyneside a penny, then of course that is something we would welcome. But this council will not replace one unsustainable financial position with another. Chair, this decision has never been about whether outdoor education matters. Of course it matters. It has been about whether this council can continue to own and subsidise a residential outdoor education centre that requires millions of pounds, costs hundreds of thousands of pounds every year to run, is used by fewer than half of our school and has significant spare capacity. For those reasons, I urge members to reject this motion.
Right, thank you. We have Councillor, no, Councillor Monk. Councillor Bones.
Thank you, Chair. If the Cabinet member thinks that High Borrens has been such a bad deal for North Tyneside Council, why on earth have they kept it open for the last 14 years that they've run the council? It's because she doesn't believe a word that she's saying. If it was a bad deal, they would have closed it when they took over 14 years ago. The reason they're doing it now is because they've got the council in such a financial mess that there is no other option.
That is not correct.
Sorry, Chair, you don't get to rule on what's correct or not. I'm allowed to speak to a motion.
I'm asking you to withdraw that. You don't know.
No, absolutely not.
Yes, just withdraw that.
I'm not withdrawing. This council is in a mess. We have millions of pounds overspent every single year, and it's their doing.
Totally inappropriate for a chair.
Continue.
Thank you. The Cabinet member asked what we would cut, and I think that it's quite easy. We start with cutting the massive 235% councillors' allowance increase they awarded themselves last year. We get rid of the mayor's chauffeur-driven car. We get rid of trade union facility time. The list goes on and on and on, but they're not willing to cut things that look after them, their luxuries. They're instead taking it away from our children. What does the Labour Party in North Tyneside have against our young people? They're closing schools. They're closing High Borrens. They've got endless amounts of money to spend on legal fees to force those decisions through, but they haven't got the money to keep a vital local service, which is well loved and well cherished, alive. Dame Norma Redfern became Knock It Down Norma, and this mayor is at serious risk of becoming Close It Down Karen. I would invite them all to think very hard about how they vote tonight and whether they put our children first. It's not often that we get residents in North Tyneside signing petitions in the numbers that residents have on High Borrens, and that shows the strength of public feeling. That this is about our children's futures. So the question tonight is, who are they putting first? Are they putting our children first, or are they putting their party whip first? Are they gagged? Will they speak out in favour of one of the most widely supported issues that's come before this chamber, or will they sit on their hands and sit in silence? I know which one I'll be doing. I know what this side of the chamber will be doing. I would urge every one of them to reflect on their conscience, vote with their residents and support this motion.
Councillor Mulvena.
I shan't be supporting your motion, to be perfectly honest. But I was quite surprised to see this motion and see Councillor Johnston's name on the top of it, because I had more time for Councillor Johnston than most in the Conservative group. And obviously he hasn't done his research. In approximately 2004, I think it was, the then Conservative group proposed the closure of High Borrens for exactly the same reasons as what we are arguing tonight. At that particular time, it was actually only kept open because the then Labour mayor who came in 2005 reversed that decision and also stated at that particular time that we should try to make it sustainable and stick to that. We've managed to keep this place operational since that date. It has reached the end of its life, as it were. Now, if people are prepared to vote to put the money in the pot, right, we are talking about roughly a 2% increase in council tax. That's what we're talking about. No, there's nothing there. The reality is that we do not have the finances, And from a party who can't even produce a budget, let alone an argument about the continuation of high borrowings, it just blows my mind. So I think people have actually got to actually accept this is one of the hardest decisions that this group has ever made. And I personally am not happy with it at all. But unfortunately, I can't lumber the money on the residents in my ward. Thank you.
Councillor Johnson.
Thank you, Chair. I'm not going to go into the principal decision. I think Councillor Holloway set out the Labour Group's position very well on that. I will go into some of the questions that members have raised and some of the points they've raised about the decision-making process. I've never heard more arguments across this chamber for people trying to abolish the mayoral system. The rules of procedure are pretty clear on this council that this was a decision for the mayor and cabinet. If members want to abolish the mayoral system, that's up to them to bring a petition to do so. But also, if members have failed to understand our constitution, that is on them, not us. Any member across this chamber could have inspected those documents. You didn't choose to. That is on you, not the Labour Group. You had the opportunity. And if you didn't know that as a new member, I respect some members are new, they don't understand the Constitution, that's on them. Some members on the Tory bench that have been here for years and they should know better. They should know they could have inspected them documents and you chose not to. You could have used the scrutiny process and you chose not to. Instead, you chose to bring a motion to council tonight. Use the proper processes. The proper process was there. The decision-making process was followed correctly, and it's abhorrent to suggest it wasn't.
Thank you, Councillor Johnson. Any further speakers? Councillor Scogill.
Thank you, Chair. I know that myself and so many of the public watching tonight will be really disappointed in the denigration of Highborrans that we've heard, especially from Councillor Holloway speaking about how supposedly so few children use it. Councillor Holloway asks how we will pay for it. That was the purpose of this cross-party inquiry. We on the Conservative benches are prepared to sit with Reform and the Independent and the Greens and Labour to think about how we can fund this vital service. I don't understand why Labour wouldn't sit in the room with us so we can try and figure out a solution which is acceptable to the public and to the members in this room. It's clear from the public outrage at this decision that there is a huge appetite to continue Highborrans, and I urge more Labour members to break away from supporting this terrible and unpopular decision and vote for this motion. Thank you.
Councillor Lilly.
Thank you, Chair. Just listening to this debate, it's obvious that every member in this chamber thinks highly of outdoor pursuits and outdoor activities. I think the main issue here is one of not arguing against the benefits of that kind of education. I mean, I personally have been on at least one field trip for all my 38 years in teaching, and I've seen the benefits to all types of children. I think the issue being raised here is that the decision was taken in secrecy, depriving members and the public of the opportunity to scrutinise the rationale behind it. The Friends of Highborrans dispute some of the figures that are being put forward by Capita and obviously therefore by members opposite. And really, we should have this open investigation to show the true facts. If there's nothing to hide, have a cross-party investigation. Show us the evidence. Show us why you're closing it. But the figures are disputed. Disprove what the Friends of Highborrans are saying about Capita and about some of the repairs that have already been undertaken. They say that, you say it's not true, we don't know, and the investigation would show that. Nobody's saying that the children in North Tyneside are not going to get some sort of outdoor education. But we have to be convinced that due process has been taken and all facts have been looked at. It's easy to say they have, but people, it's perception that is important. And the perception is amongst the public is that they haven't, because they've been taken in secrecy. Now that might be what has to happen, but the public don't believe that. And until you can convince the public that there's no underhand shenanigans going on here, you're on the back foot. So the easiest way to get off the back foot and on the front foot is to have this cross-party investigation. Not a blame game, just put the facts there, say this is what we were presented with, the Friends of Highborrens can put their case, and then people will see that full due process was undertaken. And it might be that this is the only decision you could have come to, but people don't believe you. And that's a perception that's out there with the public. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Lilly. Councillor Montague.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, I think talking about perception as a member here and not trying to dispel the idea of perception is a little bit dangerous. But that's not the point I wanted to make. I'd like to bring up the fact that you all had an opportunity, apart from the Greens, so I'll forgive you on this one, to look for savings in the council when you were invited to be a part of the budget study group. That's a scrutiny process where you could have found savings, but you didn't.
Thank you, Councillor Montague. Councillor Gray.
If councillors had issues with how the decision was taken, as has already been set out, there is a process for members to look into that through the call-in process. That option was there, it wasn't exercised. Rather than bringing motions to council, when actually they could have affected the decision that was made being reviewed to ensure that it was carried out correctly, they haven't chosen to do that. By bringing a motion here, they have, I think, devolved themselves of the actual responsibilities under the Constitution, trying to make cheap political points rather than actually deal with the decision that was made. The call-in process there is there for a reason. Members have those rights under the Constitution. If they do not choose to exercise the rights of call-in, that is for them and that is their decision to make, but they can't pass the buck on to other people.
Thank you, Councillor Gray. Councillor Smith, you've already spoken, so you can't speak again. Any further speakers? No. Right, can we? Councillor Robinson.
Thank you, Chair. All I've heard from the opposition is lack of funding. Funding's constantly blamed for every decision. From closing one facility to the next, finance is always the blame. Now they are saying that it's only partially used by the majority, some North Tyneside children. Well, it sounds to me like it's a case of mismanagement. So surely we should be looking at the management and why it's not being used 100% by North Tyneside children, rather than jumping to.
I think that's been answered by Councillor Holway.
Sorry, I missed that. Yeah. Yep. So like I said, rather than jumping to guns and just closing things, maybe we should be looking at why it's not being used and how we can better manage them rather than the mismanagement. Thank you.
Thanks,
Chair. On a point of order. On a point of order, the Constitution was amended 2 years ago to require the Chair to act impartially when chairing meetings. This evening, you've interrupted several members of the opposition with a personal viewpoint.
It's not
sorry, I'm making a point. I'm making a point of order. In my opinion, you've interrupted several members of the opposition with your personal viewpoint, which is not chairing the meeting independently or fairly. I would request that legal remind you of your obligation as per the Constitution to chair this independently, aside from your political affiliation and personal view.
I'll take advice from legal and not from you. Thank you very much. Okay.
Can I get a legal officer's view on that, please?
To legal. And I'll take advice from her, not from you. Okay. Right. Are we finished with any further questions? Councillor Johnson, you have the right to reply.
Yeah, well, to be honest, Chair, I'm not surprised. I'm just disappointed and I'm sad, to be honest with you. We didn't ask for a decision to be made to keep Highborrens open. We asked for 3 simple things: to pause the closure, to take a breath and to reflect, to look at every credible alternative, and to carry out a full cross-party investigation into how this decision was reached. But it looks like Labour are going to reject all 3. I'm not surprised. That's their democratic right. But it's also a political choice, and residents will make their own judgment about that choice. Throughout this full debate, we've not argued that difficult decisions should never take place. We've not argued that decisions of this magnitude must be open, transparent and properly scrutinised. Tonight, the administration has chosen not to provide that reassurance. The question we have raised has not gone away simply because this motion is about to be defeated. The Conservative group and colleagues will stand with our other colleagues. Congratulations, Rebecca O'Keefe, for having the balls to actually stand up to your spineless colleagues across there who are a disgrace. And I know a lot of you actually do believe that this place should be staying open, but you're too frightened to call out the whip in your own group. You are just a group that live in fear. That's all you are. You live in fear and you want the power, and you are not prepared to make the difficult decisions for the residents in this borough. So congratulations, Rebecca, on that. You've done really, really well. We'll continue to stand with our colleagues. We'll do the right thing. We'll support the families. We'll support the schools and the residents who believe Highborrans deserves a fairer process. We are going to continue to press for answers. We're going to continue to press for transparency, and we'll continue to hold this rotten administration to account. This is not over. Let's be clear about that. It is not over. History will judge not only the decisions that was taken, but the way in which this decision is about to be made. It's a sham and it's been done behind closed doors, and you all know that. You are an absolute and total disgrace to this borough and to the people who've elected you. Shame on the lot of you.
Vote. Can we go to the vote, please? All those in favour of the motion, can you vote now, please?
If all members have now voted and their vote is showing, I will close the vote.
I did hear somebody swearing in the seats down there. No, you did. You did. You said something else, and it was heard by more than one person.
I apologise.
Thank you.
It was a passionate outcry.
So the motion has failed. Yes, 23, abstain none, no 33. Motion has failed. Thank you. Move to motion 3. Can I invite Councillor Bartoli to move the motion, please?
Thank you, Chair. I bring this motion tonight with understandable amount of frustration, because the reality is we should not need to be debating this issue once again. In 2022, I brought a motion to this council about the maintenance and protection of our war memorials. It was not controversial or party political, and it was unanimously supported by members across the chamber. That motion contained a number of very practical, simple and easily achievable commitments. We agreed that there would be a published cleaning schedule, that records would be kept of work carried out, that local councillors and residents would be invited to inspect memorials before and after cleaning, that appropriate signage would be installed so residents knew how to report concerns, and there'd be a proper process for the respectful removal of wreaths and poppies during following remembrance commemorations. 4 years later, those commitments simply have not been delivered. Since that motion was passed, I've never once been asked to inspect the Tynemouth War Memorial following cleaning. I've never been provided with the published cleaning schedule we agreed should exist, and there's still no signage at the memorial telling residents how to report damage or maintenance concerns. But perhaps most disappointingly this year, I had to contact the council in June to ask for the previous remembrance wreaths to be removed more than 7 months after they'd been laid, and for the area to be properly cleaned. By that stage, the wreaths had deteriorated and were scattered around the memorial. That is not the standard any of us in this chamber should consider acceptable. It is the responsibility of the Labour administration to make sure that commitments made by this council, particularly commitments agreed unanimously, are actually followed through. Our war memorials are not pieces of street furniture or other items on a maintenance schedule. They carry the names of people from our communities who left their families, served their countries and never came home. Families gather around them, veterans gather around them, and every year we stand before them as a community to remember those who made the ultimate sacrifice. The least we can do is to ensure that memorials bearing their names are treated with the dignity and respect they deserve. There's also no financial reason why the commitments have not been delivered. £25,000 is already included in the council's investment plan for planned maintenance of war memorials, while routine cleaning is met from existing budgets. It reflects appallingly on the Labour administration that we've had to bring this issue back to full council, simply to ask for commitments that should have been implemented without the need for another motion. Protecting and maintaining our war memorials should be something the Labour administration is proud to do and something it takes seriously throughout the year, not simply rushed in the weeks around Remembrance Sunday. So I hope members will once again support what we agreed in 2022. Publish the cleaning schedule, keep proper records, involve local councillors and residents, provide clear contact information at the memorials, and ensure wreaths and poppies are removed respectfully at the appropriate time. Our war memorials deserve more than warm words and empty promises. They deserve to be maintained properly and treated with the respect that the people whose names that appear on them deserve. Thank you, Chair.
Do you have a seconder? Councillor G. Bartoli.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Lewis Bartoli has already covered the history of the original motion and the specific commitments that haven't been met, so I won't repeat them. But for me, this comes down to what it actually means when this council makes a decision. In 2022, we unanimously agreed to properly maintain our war memorials and set out practical steps to make it happen. When full council agrees on something unanimously, residents have a right to expect that decision to stick. They shouldn't have to see councillors returning 4 years later to ask for the exact same promises to be kept. It's especially disappointing that this involves our war memorials. These are vital parts of our local history across North Tyneside. Nearly every town and neighbourhood has families with relatives' names on them, and they remain a focal point for our communities every Remembrance Sunday. We put a lot of effort into our remembrance events each November, but our responsibility to these memorials can't just be one weekend a year. Looking after them properly year-round is a fundamental part of showing our respect. This motion isn't unreasonable or complicated. Above all, it simply asks this administration to keep the promises it makes to the people in this chamber and the residents of North Tyneside. I hope members will support this motion tonight, just as they did in 2022. Maintaining our war memorials is a right thing to do, but more than that, when this council makes a unanimous commitment to our residents, we need to honour it. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Bartoli. Lee?
Chair. It's already been supplied to Democratic Services.
None of us heard that. Will it be possible to repeat it? I didn't catch what you said.
I just informed the chair that I was moving an amendment and the amendment's being supplied to Democratic Service circulation.
Has everybody had time to read the amendments? Councillor Early?
Thank you, Chair. I would like to begin by restating the ongoing commitment of North Tyneside Council and its unerring support for its veterans and the honouring of those service personnel who have fallen in the service of their country. We have a fantastic armed forces champion in Councillor Andy Newman, who works extremely hard on behalf of veterans in the borough and closely with various veterans associations. In addition, I'm sure that members will recall that the Council has worked with the British Legion and other veterans associations to promote 3 events in recent months to honour the fallen and support our North Tyneside veterans. The Falklands War Memorial Remembrance Service at the Jigsaw Memorial in Killingworth, the Armed Forces Day event at the Whitley Bay Memorial, and the Veterans Walkway opening, which all took place in June. So to suggest, as the motion does, that the Council offer only warm words in support of veterans and its fallen service personnel is ludicrous. Turning to the substance of this amendment, it is required firstly to clarify the work which has taken place since the original motion was passed, and secondly to set out a proposal for the revised maintenance approach following the advice the Council has received from the War Memorials Trust, which is that the frequency of the cleaning of memorials should be determined by the need for conservation rather than a fixed timetable, and that the commitments agreed in the original 22 motion be implemented in accordance with that advice and the advice from officers set out in the all-member briefing of March 2023. The amendment confirms that ward councillors will be advised of any significant maintenance or restoration work, and a record of cleaning maintenance work will be maintained, and that signage will be installed at memorials where appropriate. This amendment sets out a pragmatic method for ensuring North Tyneside's war memorials are maintained to the highest standard and continue to remain visible tributes to the civic pride that the residents and this council have for its veterans and those service personnel who made the ultimate sacrifice for their country. I trust that all members will be able to support this amendment. Thank you, Chair.
Have a seconder. Councillor Gray. Anybody like to speak to the amendment? Councillor.
Sorry, can I just clarify something? I'm a veteran of 23 years service. What you're suggesting, if I'm reading this right, is that based on the War Memorials Trust advice, you're not going to clean any part of it, less the frequency. So wreaths obviously don't require some sort of trust schedule. So is there going to be basic cleaning done and then avoiding the part that gets damaged? Is that what they're saying? Or are you saying you're going to completely avoid the cleaning until such times it's appropriate to clean the bits that could be damaged? Does that make sense? So can someone clarify that?
Just clarification. Okay. Councillor Johnson, are you speaking?
Yes, Chair. So in terms of the memorial itself, it's on about stone and the metal bits of memorial rather than cleaning around them. Cleaning around them, absolutely fine. But the trust's been pretty clear that some of the cleaning that was done in this borough after the last time by members of the public did actually damage the war memorials, and we had to spend money repairing those memorials. But also cleaning them too often does indeed damage them. These are very old structures in some cases, particularly a couple of the ones in Tynemouth where they are significantly old, and over cleaning them does do damage. I'd rather not do damage to war memorials. Councillor Newman, who is not here tonight, did wish to be here. Of course, a veteran himself, he's very keen to look at this motion, and we absolutely have to listen to the War Memorials Trust. We don't want to do damage to those things that are lasting legacy to my members of my family's names are on them around the borough as well. We don't want to do lasting damage to them. This was not about political point score or political anything. We want to do a genuine motion to help our war memorials. The 2023 members briefing did set out some of the responses to 2022. That's why we've amended that bit. We want to be clear. We absolutely want to deliver for our war memorials. We want to make sure the best they can and to celebrate our armed forces right across the borough. We have a fantastic set, far beyond any other council in this region, a fantastic set of remembrance service parades that go beyond much of the areas. We're absolutely proud of our veterans and we'll continue to do so.
Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Chair. I don't disagree with what Councillor Johnson has just told me. I can understand damages caused by overcleaning. I think maybe what I took from Councillor Bartoli's talk was things are being left. So is there a specific schedule of inspection to make sure that the memorials are maintained? Can anyone let me know that?
Right. I mean, that's a question. You don't ask questions when you just speak to it, but I can understand why you're asking that for clarification. Councillor Bartoli.
Thank you, Chair. In the spirit of the motion in 2022, we will be accepting the amendment as it is. We acknowledge the advice of the War Memorials Trust and their advice, particularly that's with regards to cleaning the memorials. And thank you to Councillor Johnson for the clarification that it only includes the memorial itself and not the surrounding area. It doesn't, however, take away from the fact that we've waited 4 years for these to be implemented. And I hope that in the spirit of what's been said this evening, that this is implemented at some pace. So we will be supporting the amendment. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Wallace.
Thank you, Chairman. I support the motion and the amendment because I think a lot of our memorials, the standard of maintenance leaves a lot to be desired. I understand the difference between actually cleaning the stonework and not damaging that, but the war memorials are often the memorial itself plus the garden area or the seating area around it. And it's often the case that that area is rather neglected. And I think the original motion back in 2022 envisaged cleaning to include the memorial itself and the surrounding area, which can lead, if it's neglected, it's extremely sad. It gives an extremely poor impression of our borough, and it does not honour those servicemen and women who have fallen in defence of our country. I think it's particularly important at the moment. Those men and women died for the freedom of our country, and the freedom of our country is very much under threat at the moment. Defence is very much in the news and is a huge cause for concern. I would like to draw attention to the War Memorial in my own ward of St Mary's. We have the War Memorial in Erston. It is particularly beautiful. I invite members to come and have a look. It's very unusual because it has a sailor rather than a soldier. I don't think there are many, if any, others, and it is a beautiful one, but the surrounding area is often untidy. It's left littered. I've often collected litter myself to remove it. When I've inquired about it, I was told that it got a tidy up near Remembrance Day in November. It was looked at in February and in the summer. That was the report from the officers. It hasn't actually been cleaned since September last year. So I do hope that this motion, this amended motion, will ensure that cleaning of the memorial itself when appropriate and the surrounding area takes place regularly, the 4 times a year that we have been promised. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Wallace. Councillor Gree.
Thank you, Chair. I'd just like to start by echoing the tributes made by Councillor Early to those who've served our country. It's important that we reflect on those sacrifices made in protection of our country and the lives impacted in our borough. As set out in the amendment, a great deal of work has been undertaken to ensure that as a council, we are properly looking after these important memorials that mean a great deal to our communities. That work is taken into account the advice of the War Memorials Trust and the councillors Planning Conservation Officer, who has said that a conservation-based approach is needed. Many of our war memorials will now be over 100 years old, with many reaching that age in the coming decades. It is important that we follow best conservation practice to ensure that these memorials continue to stand the test of time and aren't damaged with cleaning techniques that aren't suitable, which again is set out in the Labour Group amendment the War Memorials Trust have said could end up doing more harm than the intended good. In a previous job, I was fortunate to spend some time with the Commonwealth War Graves Commission at one of their sites in the region. As would be expected, how they maintain the memorials and the graves under their care was a key topic of discussion. They recognised that the way in which some of the graves looked may be concerning, but that was because at a distance they may look what may look like surface dirt was actually tiny photosynthetic and fungal organisms that were much deeper in the stone, and how a particular stone they no longer use to make new headstones had a higher tendency for these imperfections. Harsher chemicals and cleaning techniques, which may for a short time improve colour of memorials, is only temporary and will over a longer period of time cause damage and deeper pitting to the stone, creating a larger surface area for these organisms to grow. The War Memorials Trust are clear on their advice, and it is with good grace and respect for their expertise that we should carry out our maintenance as outlined by them to the council. In response to Councillor Smith's point, the members' briefing from 2023 said A programme of respectful removal of poppies will be established, with all poppies being removed from our war memorials after an 8-week period after the event. In response to the point Councillor Bartoli has made on this matter, there was human error at one of the sites in the borough, and they were cleared as soon as council was alerted to the matter. And just to reiterate that point, if there are some of these in the future that are missed, please to let the council know so they can be respectfully removed in good time following being reported. Chair, I'm grateful that the Labour Group's amendment is taken in the spirit we have brought it in. That protecting our war memorials for the long term is our priority through the use of safe cleaning and preservation techniques. This is so that the sacrifices of those commemorated across our borough will be remembered and reflected upon for generations to come. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Councillor Gray. Councillor Hannah Johnson.
Thank you, Chair. I'd also like to add to Councillor Gray's thanks for people across the chamber tonight for recognising the amendment and the intention with which it was brought. I think we absolutely need to listen to the advice of the War Memorials Trust, but I do accept that sometimes some of the stuff that can be left around the memorials possibly hasn't been taken as quickly as it could have been in just a handful of cases. So if there is any instances like that in the future, I would just like to say that I will absolutely work with anyone across the chamber to make sure that that is corrected, and work with officers as well if we feel like it's not been done quick enough. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Johnson. And Councillor Drummond.
Thank you, Chair. I'll be supporting the amended motion tonight. I might be going off piste a little bit, but I think that some of the best way we can actually honour our fallen is actually turning up for events which are quite poorly attended a lot of the time. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Drummond. Last one, Councillor.
Thank you, Chair. I'll be very brief. It's just I've only been a councillor for 2 and a bit years, and I've been incredibly impressed by the work the council does. I mean, in Tynemouth, the restoration of the War Memorial, you know, it's truly impressive. And I think, you know, the remembrance is about more than just these sites. I mean, the Commonwealth War Graves site at Preston Cemetery, which is obviously, you know, not 100% the responsibility of the council, that the cemetery as a whole is absolutely immaculate. And, you know, I'd certainly recommend a visit there on Remembrance Day. You know, it's not all about doing exactly the same thing.
Any further speakers? Councillor Mulvenner.
It's interesting that this is before the council tonight, and to be honest, both sides of the arguments stack up. It actually makes it look better with the amendment, but in West Allotment, where we have a war memorial for a great number of years, the residents have actually maintained the memorial with the support of the council. We've done a lot of the work around it, and I think the only reason this year we've slipped is because most of the people involved are now reaching their 80s and are in not so good health, which is the case. But there's nothing to stop councillors actually picking up a phone and ringing up the Environment Department and saying to them, when are you going to move these poppies? That's all you've got to do. Pick up a phone or put in a member's inquiry and they get removed and they go away. You know, I mean, as far as the gardens and that are concerned around them, well, we haven't got a garden. We've got this sort of mixture of hedges, which 2 are responsible of 2 residents, and another one we're not too sure who's responsible for, but we still cut them from time to time. And the council comes along and takes the stuff away. So, you know, I mean, we're councillors, we work in the community, you hear about people doing litter picks and so on and so forth. Why don't some of the councillors actually get their sleeves rolled up, go out, take a blinking litter picker or a pair of shears and trim the hedge or pick the stuff up? There's nothing to stop people doing it. In West Allotment, we've been doing it for years, and we take our hats off the residents who go out every year and do it. When we come to Armistice Day itself, we have a fantastic event, and residents really put their heart and soul into it. But unfortunately, we have little hiccups, and these little hiccups are what councillors should be picking up on. And if it's 8 weeks for poppies, then and they're not shifted, why not pick up the phone?
Chair, can I move a motion by notice that we move to the vote, please? Chair, I think there's agreement across the chamber. There's not much more debate to be had.
Is that agreed? Go to the vote. Right, can we go to the vote, please? All those in favour of the amendment?
All members have voted and are happy that their votes are shown. We'll close the vote.
That's unanimous and the amendment is carried, which now becomes a substantive motion. We go straight to the vote on the substantive motion. Agreed. All vote now, please.
We'll close the vote if members are happy their votes displayed.
That's unanimous and that's carried. Thank you. Can we move on to motion 4? Councillor Bartoli.
Thank you, Chair. So I think I'm just going to start by saying that it's important at the outset to be clear about what we're actually proposing in this motion. This motion does not seek to ban face coverings, nor is it intended to interfere with anyone who wears one for religious, cultural, medical or any other legitimate reason. What we're asking the council to consider is whether the police and authorised council officers should have another practical tool available to them when someone is deliberately concealing their identity while involved in antisocial behaviour or suspected criminal activity. This proposal has come directly from conversations about the problem residents are experiencing. Councillor Jay Bartoli and I recently organised a public meeting in Tynemouth about the rise of antisocial behaviour at the coast. We had nearly 100 residents attend, along with senior representatives from Northumbria Police, businesses and the local community. Sadly, the council failed to attend after agreeing to, without even tendering an apology, leaving residents rightly furious. During that meeting, we discussed what is working, what is not working, and importantly, whether there are additional measures which could help the police and council officers deal with some of the behaviour residents are regularly reporting. One of the issues raised by the police and discussed was the deliberate covering of faces by individuals while causing trouble or committing offences. That very much reflects the correspondence we receive from the residents. I regularly receive emails about young people using e-bikes and scooters irresponsibly and dangerously, particularly along the coast. Residents have specifically raised concerns about the new cycle route being used by people travelling at considerable speeds or weaving around pedestrians and riding in a way that creates a genuine risk to other people. And we know that these vehicles are capable of causing very serious injuries if they strike a pedestrian, particularly someone elderly or a young child. Similarly, concerns have been raised elsewhere in the borough about the illegal use of motorbikes, including in New York and Merton, where we've also seen young people entering local shops, including the Co-op in Tynemouth, with their faces covered and shoplifting. In circumstances like these, deliberately concealing someone's face can make identification impossible and make enforcement considerably harder. So this motion asks, where there are reasonable grounds to believe that someone is concealing their identity while involved in antisocial behaviour or suspected criminal activity, should a police officer or properly authorised council officer have the ability to require them to remove that covering? We believe this is at the very least worth exploring. It's also important to stress that we're not asking the council tonight to introduce such a power immediately. The motion first asks the council to work with Northumbria Police and the Community Protection Team to review the available evidence. If that evidence demonstrates that there is a problem which could appropriately be addressed through a public space protection order, we are then asking the council to consult residents and businesses before any decision is taken. The legal advice before us confirms that the council already has these powers, and it also makes clear that any new PSPO would have to be properly evidenced and consulted upon. I'm not going to pretend for a moment that this proposal will solve antisocial behaviour on its own. It will not stop every dangerous e-bike or scooter, prevent every theft or identify every person who causes problems. But tackling antisocial behaviour is rarely about one single measure, and it's about giving the police and council officers a range of proportionate tools that they can use where appropriate. This may be another useful tool available to them. All we're asking tonight is that we look at the evidence, speak to Northumbria Police and our own officers, consult the public and establish whether there is a proportionate and practical way of giving those on the front line an additional power to deal with behaviour that our residents are increasingly concerned about. I think that's a reasonable approach, and I hope that the members across the chamber will support the motion. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Bartoli. Do you have a seconder? Councillor Scargill?
Thank you, Chair. I'm pleased to second this motion. Now we're in summer. If you go around parts of New York or Hilltop Park on any given evening, you'll find residents who are frankly terrorised. Young people on dirt bikes and off-road motorbikes with their faces hidden behind balaclavas or masks, tearing across the park, mounting pavements and racing along paths where children play. People have the genuine fear of being knocked down on their own street, and those responsible for this terror can evade accountability because nobody can put a name to a faceless rider. A public spaces protection order is a last resort to finally tackle this. This motion is built on similar provisions used across the country. There's no reason why residents in North Shields should have fewer protections than residents elsewhere. I hope colleagues across the chamber will support this motion tonight and give our police and council officers the powers to make our parks and streets safer and end the scourge of crimes being committed anonymously using face coverings.
Thank you.
Chair, I've got an amendment that I've circulated to Democratic Services.
So take it, has everybody had the opportunity to read the amendments? Before we go any further, can I just say we've got an hour left and still quite a lot of business to get through. So can we make any responses, replies brief, no repetition in questions if it's been asked already? Can we make sure that we don't repeat the questions? Councillor Johnson.
Thank you, Chair. At its heart, I think there's agreement across this chamber. Nobody wants to see our communities blighted by motorbike crime. Nobody wants to see people riding illegally through our parks, beaches, promenades and neighbourhoods while hiding their identity behind balaclavas or face coverings. Residents deserve to feel safe in their community, and those responsible should be identified and held to account. That's why Labour supports the principle behind this motion, but we do think it can be strengthened a bit. The original motion focused on a small number of locations, and I get that you've only got councillors in some of those locations, but it's more of an issue than not just New York and Merton or Tynemouth. It's a borough-wide problem that requires a borough-wide response. There have been 654 incidents of mobile-related crime across the borough in the last 12 months. Those incidents are spread across North Tyneside, and it's based on police force area, 213 in the Kilnworth area, 178 in North Shields, 136 in Wallsend, and 127 in Whitley Bay. So that is far beyond just the area identified as this issue. The administration has already strengthened our council's policy of prohibited activities, prohibiting the riding of racing of motorbikes, mopeds, high-powered e-bikes and e-scooters in council-owned parks, beaches, country parks, wagonways and other public open spaces. That demonstrates our commitment to tackling the issue before today's motion even came to council. Nor has this proposal come out of nowhere. This is something we've already been discussing with a number of police. I know Councillor Johnson raised that at the meeting with the police in the Meadowell recently. who would always ask before, who would always be the primarily people enforcing public space protection orders in this instance, is therefore only right we work alongside them to ensure any new powers are practical, proportionate, and capable of making a real difference on the ground. As people might know, Northumbria Police have already established Operation Apollo, and they are targeting policing operations taking place, and our community protection teams working alongside the police to tackle motorbike crime across the borough. I know in my ward there was four motorbikes / e-bikes taken off them and crushed in the last couple of weeks, which is a great result. And I know those actions have been happening right across the borough. We also know that, however, there has to be statutory tests to be met if we're introducing the PSPO. This must be robust evidence, there must be consultation with residents and businesses, and there must be a quality impact assessment. So we must be confident this can be enforced effectively. That's what our amendment seeks to achieve. Broadens across the whole borough, builds on the work already underway, and if evidence supports it, allows council to consult and introduce a public space protection order to give police and authorised officers another tool to tackle motorbike crime. It's practical, supports stronger enforcement, supports the police, and it builds on action already taken, and ensures that any public space protection order is legally robust, evidence-led, and capable of making a real difference to residents across North Tyneside. As well as this, we do need the police to step up and take even more action on motorbike crime, and something I hope this across this borough we can all agree on. We need the police to step up and take motorbike crime. So I will be writing to group leaders and Councillor Wallace Karen will be writing to group leaders and Councillor Wallace in the coming days about that. But I hope this amendment is taken in the spirit it's meant in. It's meant to try and expand it a bit. Hopefully we can get on and tackle the job for the residents of this borough.
Thanks, Councillor Johnson. Do you have a seconder? Zingwa?
Sorry. sorry about that. I'm seconding the motion because giving police powers to require removal of balaclads and face coverings, they especially when they are being used to hide identity in ASBO and criminal cases, so that individuals can be identified. This is really quite important, but it must be with clear exemptions. And this is not just an issue for New York or Merton. Residents in North Shield, Sheaton, Persimmon, Whitley Bay, and everywhere else in North Tyneside face the same problems of criminals wearing balaclads, and we need a fair barrow-wide approach, and then targeted powers will help the police to tackle ASBO and protecting civil liberties for all residents. So I definitely ask the chamber to support this amendment. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Mutsingwa.
Chair, if it assists to expedite matters, there'll be no objections from this side, so we could go to the vote if vote's content.
Does anybody else want to speak, and does anybody else want to go straight to the vote? Straight to the vote? Right, all those in favour of the amendment?
We'll close the vote if all voted.
The amendment is carried. That now becomes a substantive motion. Does anybody want to speak, or we will go straight to the vote again? Straight to the vote again. Thank you.
All members have voted. We'll close the vote now.
The motion is carried. Thank you. I think that's the end of motions, isn't it? That's the end of motions. We now go on to members' questions. And the first question is from Councillor Croft. Would you like to ask the question or take it as read? Thank you. Councillor Holloway, you're responding?
Yes, thank you. I feel like I'm just repeating myself again. Funding for High Borrens, like every other council service, is approved through the annual budget process. The fact that funding existed within the 2026-27 budget did not prevent Cabinet from taking a decision during the year when it became clear that continuing to operate the service was neither financially sustainable nor in the best interest of North Tyneside taxpayers. This was not a decision about whether outdoor education should continue. It was a decision about whether North Tyneside Council could continue operating a loss-making outdoor education centre that was increasingly underused by its own schools. Around half of North Tyneside schools now choose alternative providers, and despite the dedication of staff, High Borrens has been operating below its capacity for several years. To help fill those places, the council has increasingly relied on bookings from outside North Tyneside, with local taxpayers subsidising those visits by more than £62,000 each year. Once Cabinet reached its decision in June, it would have been irresponsible simply to continue operating a service that was losing money every month. Every month High Borrens remains open costs the council around £21,000 in subsidy from the general fund. Delaying closure until April 2027, as suggested, would have required taxpayers to spend many tens of thousands of pounds more without changing outcome. The timetable has therefore been carefully designed to strike the right balance. It gives schools within the existing bookings time to make alternative arrangements, provides staff with certainty and access to the council's employment support processes, and allows the centre to close at a point in the year when bookings are naturally lower. Closing on the 30th of November will save the council around £85,000 this financial year. More importantly, it is the first step in addressing a service that already requires a substantial amount of subsidy and around £3.4 million of investment simply to remain operational. If the council borrowed that money, the annual cost to the general fund would exceed £500,000 every year. The alternative put forward by some is simply to continue spending more public money on a service that fewer North Tyneside schools are choosing to use. Cabinet did not believe that was a responsible choice. We believe it is right to protect outdoor education by supporting schools to use excellent range of providers available, while also protecting the wider council services that every resident relies upon. The responsible decision is not always the easiest one, but it is the one administration was elected to make.
Thank you, Councillor Hallway. Now, Councillor Smith. Oh, sorry. Yeah. Supplementary, yes, that's I meant. It's getting late.
Thank you, Chair. Can the Mayor and her Cabinet commit to deferring their decision to close High Borrens and agree to option 1 of the officer's report to Cabinet, in which they stated the authority could initially invest £850,000 and operate it as a commercial facility, and commit to further modernise the centre over the medium term?
No, we don't think that's the right decision. You.
Councillor Smith. Question?
I would just take it as read, Chair.
Take it as read.
Yeah.
Councillor Samuel.
There is a request wherein we take sit in the next question at the same time because they're very broadly similar.
Councillor McMullen, your question as well, and Councillor Samuel will respond to both together.
Yeah, thanks. Take it as read.
Okay, thank you. Thank you both for your questions. A feasibility study was carried out to assess options for improving access to household waste and recycling facilities in the northwest of the borough. At the same time, we launched a trial programme of neighbourhood waste and recycling events across the northwest. The response from residents was overwhelmingly positive and gave us valuable evidence about how people want to access these services. On the back of that work, I'm delighted to announce that we will introduce a permanent weekly neighbourhood waste and recycling event in the Killingworth depot site. The service will operate every Saturday with full details, including how residents can book, to be published on the council's website once the arrangements are finalised. This is a significant improvement in access for residents in the northwest and demonstrates that by listening to local people and testing new approaches, we can deliver practical solutions that offer good value for money. I also want to pay tribute to Councillor Anthony McMullen, who has constantly championed the need for better access to household waste and recycling facilities in the northwest. I know he has been supported in that campaign by Labour councillors from across the northwest of the borough, who have continued to press the case on behalf of their residents. It is also right to recognise Muriel Green, who raised this issue and argued for improved provision over many years This announcement reflects the persistence of local campaigners and the council's willingness to listen and act.
Councillor Croft Smith, do you have a supplementary question?
Yes, sorry. So the proposal to have the use of the Killingworth site is welcome. That's good. But the outcome is kind of a strange outcome to me, because I thought we were looking at a feasibility study for a site in Killingworth, not in an existing council facility.
I'm pleased to confirm through a combination of working with an existing contractor and the input of in-house specialist teams, the council did not need to spend any of the 100k feasibility study money.
Councillor McMullen, supplementary.
I was going to say, for the avoidance of doubt, since the administration's changed in Newcastle, are they still of the opinion that they will not share access with us at the Brunswick site?
We have made several approaches to Newcastle Council and they're still of that opinion despite the change of political composition.
Thank you, Councillor Samuel. I think the next question is Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Chair. Can the Mayor of the Council confirm when the food waste collection service will be implemented? I was told this service had to be introduced 25-26 due to legislation. It was the Environmental Act 2019, passed by the previous Conservative legislation. My question is, are we now in breach of the legislation because the service hasn't been introduced? And if so, what are the consequences of that for the council?
Councillor Samuel.
Thank you for your question. The new weekly food waste collection service will begin in the week commencing the 17th of August. Phase 1 will provide the service to around 32,000 properties across 11 wards, with plans already being developed to complete a full borough-wide rollout from 2027-28. Introducing a separate weekly food waste collection has been a long-standing commitment of this council. It features in our previous council plan before the national requirement came into force and remains a key commitment in the current plan. Like many councils across the country, we have faced delays outside of our control, including a national supply chain issues affecting the delivery of vehicles and containers, alongside changes by government to the way of ongoing costs of the service would be funded. Rather than providing the dedicated revenue grant councillors have been expecting, that funding was rolled into the overall government grant finance entitlement, leaving councils to meet the additional cost alongside all the other pressures of local services. Despite these challenges, I am pleased that residents will begin to benefit from the new service next month, with full borough-wide implementation planned.
Sorry, so were we in breach of the legislation by not bringing this in by 25-26 or not?
Statutory implementation date was 31st of March 2026. And like a significant number of authorities, we were able to meet that deadline because of national supply chain issues and the way the scheme was funded by government. We have kept the Environment Agency fully informed of our progress. We are now introducing phase 1 of the service and we are not anticipating any enforcement action. Importantly, there is no evidence of enforcement action have been taken against any local authority in these circumstances.
Thank you. Next question is Councillor Dr. Scorgill.
Thank you, Chair. Residents are becoming increasingly concerned about antisocial behaviour, intimidation and disorder at the new North Shields transport hub. Given the investment of millions of pounds of public money in this flagship project, what is the council doing to ensure this becomes a valuable and safe part of our transport network and not yet another vanity project?
Councillor Cole-Johnson.
Thank you, Chair. Residents' concerns regarding antisocial behaviour and disorder at North Shields Transport Hub are fully understood. We're taking a proactive approach and coordinated approach to ensure the hub remains safe and welcoming for the community and its users. Working with a number of police who undertake regular patrols in the area, provide a visible presence and reassurance to residents and passengers. In addition, extra security personnel are being deployed at the hub and further support those using the facility and to respond quickly to any issues that may arise. The transport hub is an important piece of infrastructure and supports regeneration of the town centre, encourages the use of sustainable transport and provides modern facilities that are accessible to all.
Do you have a supplementary?
I do. Will the Mayor commit to a formal consultation with the public about what local people want to see implemented to feel safer using this bus station, as well as whether it was a good use of their hard-earned money?
We always listen to the public. We're listening, Councillor Scargill, and we always listen to what the public have to say. I think it absolutely was a good use of our money. It's a flagship project, as you rightly say, in the middle of the town. It has stopped people standing out in the cold and in the rain waiting for buses. It's improved safety of women and girls and it's brought them into a central location that is significantly better for them. It's absolutely right that we've put an extra 2 security staff on the door each night, Monday to Sunday, to ensure we can ensure security of our residents. It's a great facility and we need to make sure it can be used to its maximum.
Thank you, Councillor Johnson. Councillor Lilly, do you want to ask the question or take
Thank
it
you,
as
Chair.
read?
Can the Mayor inform the Council of the debt level of Monks Eaton High School?
Thank you. Yeah, the projected deficit upon closure of Monks Eaton High School is £8,571,357.
Supplementary.
Thank you, Chair. With Monks Eaton High School debt being at the level of £8.5 million by the end of the academic year when it closes, will the council taxpayers in North Tyneside pick up this bill? If not, where will this debt be lodged?
We don't manage the finances of the school. They manage it themselves.
Thank you. Councillor Lilly, have a second question?
Please, Chair. Can the Mayor inform Council by how much the full-time teaching staff has been reduced since the closure announcement of Monks Eaton High School?
Yeah, this is actually a matter for the school and the governing body.
So the council has no responsibility at all for Monks Eaton High School, just absolving yourself of all responsibility, because obviously the movement of full-time staff out of Monks Eaton High School will result in supply teachers being employed, which will have an adverse effect on the budget of Monks Eaton High School and the continuity of education of the children. But as you are absolving yourself more responsibility at Monks Eaton High School, I have not got a supplementary.
Councillor Bell, would you like to? That's Councillor Lilly.
Does the Mayor think the 3-tier system in Whitley Bay is tenable?
Yes.
Monks Eaton High School closed, Langley School to close, Monks Eaton Middle School remodelling itself. Monks Eaton Middle School was to close because of a lack of numbers of middle school age. It has forestalled this closure by taking pupils from year 5 through to year 11. One wonders where it is now finding pupils to fill its middle school years. They must be coming to Monks Eaton Middle School instead of other middle schools. We're now coming under pressure with Marden Bridge Middle School and Valley Gardens Middle School exploring a federation in an attempt to ensure survival. This will just be the tip of the iceberg. Has the time not come to explore all options for education in Whitley Bay?
We always do look at our options. But at the minute, yes, it is tenable, the 3-tier system.
Thank you. Councillor Bell.
Just to clarify, I've received a lot of correspondence from a resident near Whitley Bay Metro Station, and it's more than one resident now. This has escalated. They've called Nexus, the police. The situation is ongoing and it needs a more joined up response. So I'd like to ask if the council has any plans for a multi-agency approach to the increased number of homeless people and also the antisocial behaviour which is occurring at the moment in Whitley Bay Town Centre.
Councillor Johnson.
Yeah, thank you. Councillor Harrison can't be here tonight, who would normally answer the question, so I'll answer on his behalf. The multi-agency approach is already in place. The housing navigators are working closely with the community protection team and are maintaining regular engagement with Northumbria Police, British Transport Police, police and outreach services to coordinate an appropriate response and ensure support is offered to those involved. The council's approach also reflects the Labour government's commitment to ending rough sleeping. On the steps of Downing Street, the Prime Minister made clear that ending rough sleeping will be a priority for this government. We welcome that commitment and we will continue to work with our partners to ensure people who experience homelessness receive the support they need, while also addressing concerns of local residents and businesses. The Council remains committed to work with partners to balance support for vulnerable individuals with the need to address concerns raised by the residents and businesses in the town centre.
Supplementary question?
Can I just ask if there can be anything a bit more sort of detailed than that? Because actually the situation is deteriorating. It's not getting better, and I don't really see any effect. And I honestly don't see a multi-agency approach to this.
Perhaps yes, multi-agency process. Councillor Harrison will be happy to meet with any councillor that wants to talk about that issue with him. If you want to take it up with Councillor Harrison, he'll be happy to meet with you. If you want to drop him an email, he'll certainly be happy to meet with you to discuss our approach and what we're doing, as well as the other councillors in the ward.
Thank you. Councillor McAlpine.
Thank you, Chair. The recent consultation on North Tynesyde's local plan generated significant engagement, with 100 attendees at the online webinar, over 500 visits to drop-in events, 1,700 comments to the map-based survey, and 370 email responses. Can the Mayor tell us what percentage of the feedback was supportive of the plan as set out versus the percentage outright opposed or raising objections to individual plots?
Councillor Johnson.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Councillor McAlpine. I welcome the level of engagement with the draft local plan. It shows that residents care deeply about the future of North Tyneside and want to help shape it. Consultation is not a referendum on the local plan. Its purpose is to test proposals, understand concerns, and improve the plan. And that's exactly what this process has achieved. Indeed, the consultation statement that's available on the website shows that there were over 2,000 comments on the individual housing sites, demonstrating that much of the feedback focused on specific proposals rather than the principle of having a local plan. Every representation is now being carefully considered as we prepare the next draft. It is also important to remember why we're reducing the local plan in the first place. We have a legal duty to do so, and without an updated local plan, we'll leave North Tyneside exposed to speculative development and planning appeals, with far less ability to influence where development takes place or secure the infrastructure our communities need. This is not a choice between this plan and no development at all. This is a choice between having a locally led, evidence-based plan that we can share through consultation or allowing decisions to be taken for us. That's why the Labour administration will continue to listen, refine the plan where its evidence supports it, and ensure North Tyneside remains in control of its own future. Thank you.
Is supplementary?
Yeah, I do. Yeah. So revised proposals set to incorporate this feedback were approved by the Cabinet in June. So can the Mayor or Deputy Mayor explain to residents how the Council could be said to be listening to residents' feedback, given that only 3 of the smaller sites have been de-scoped?
As you know, Councillor McAlpine, the local plan will be coming to Council in the near future, and there will be further revisions to that draft when it comes to the local plan. There's a statutory process in place where you follow the local plan, and there's revisions made more and more every time. Some places will not be removed that residents want to be removed. That is the fact of making a local plan. The previous Conservative government and this Labour government both recognise the need for housing for people. They set high targets and we have to follow them. If we don't, what will happen is what's happening in South Tyneside currently, where developers have got a free-for-all on sites around there because they don't have an updated local plan in place.
Thank you. Councillor McAlpine, your second question.
I'll take this one as read, quick, Chair.
Taken as read. Is it Councillor Johnson, Hannah Johnson?
Thank you, Chair. The council planned to retain access to the beach at this location following the demolition of the boathouse. Unfortunately, a large section of that part of the coastline was subject to significant coastal erosion as a result of storms and high tides. Officers have assessed the extent and appointed a contractor to install 600 metres of birdmouth fencing to keep residents and visitors at a safe distance from the edge. Unfortunately, this included restricting access near the old boathouse. Alternative safe access points have been identified at St Mary's Links, just 0.15 miles or 245 metres north, and at Brydean Car Park, which is 0.3 miles, 475 metres south from the access. Thank you.
Do you have a supplementary question?
Yeah, thank you for providing that clarity. I just wanted to ask that would preserving this access or adding an accessible seafront path from there have been in scope of the active travel fund that the council partially used to roll out seafront cycle lanes?
As I said, there's already 2 accesses very, very close to this access, and this one is simply too dangerous for us to allow the public to use.
Thank you. Councillor Osborne.
Thanks.
Over the last few months, I've been talking to several of the businesses in North Shields Town Centre who've experienced break-ins, and there seems to be a recent spate of antisocial behaviour that's developing into more serious crimes. So I just wanted to ask, what more does the Cabinet Member or the Mayor think that the Council should be doing to tackle this and protect small businesses, many that are already struggling?
Councillor Johnson.
Thank you, Chair. No business should have to deal with break-ins, shoplifting, or persistent antisocial behaviour. I know the impact that this has on traders who are already facing the challenging economic conditions. The investigation of a crime is rightly a matter for Northern Wales Police, but the Council is not standing back. Through the Safe North Tyneside Partnership, we're working closely with the police to tackle antisocial behaviour and crime, support our businesses and make our town centres safer. Our officers have already raised 3 incidents directly with Northern Wales Police. We are supporting the businesses through initiatives such as Shopwatch, increasing the visibility of council officers through the Operation Coastwatch and Shopwatch, and working alongside the police's new Safer Streets team, which is specifically targeting retail crime and prolific offenders. We will continue to play our full part, but it's also clear we need strong policing and robust enforcement against those responsible. Businesses deserve to know that offenders will be caught, prosecuted, and prevented from targeting our town centres again.
Thank you. Supplementary question, Councillor Osborne.
Yep, thanks. Will the Cabinet Member or the Mayor work with me on arranging a meeting with the local businesses and the police to discuss the problems that they've been having recently?
I'll work with all North Shields councillors on arranging a meeting with any businesses around the borough. If everyone's get in touch, happy to talk with the Chair and Councillor Mazinga as well on a meeting with businesses and police.
A second one, yeah. Yes, thanks. So many of the businesses in the town centres are struggling, and from talking to many over the past few months, I know that several are just about making ends meet. Although there are some new businesses popping up, other ones are closing down. And so what does the Cabinet Member or the Mayor have to support small businesses, particularly in the hospitality sector in our town centres, and how can they make them thrive and overcome the problems they face?
Councillor Gray.
Businesses across North Tyneside, particularly in the hospitality sector, continue to face significant challenges. Rising energy costs, increased employment costs, inflation, and changing customer spending habits have all made trading more difficult over recent years. We know many businesses are working incredibly hard to keep their doors open. That is why it's important that support is coming from both this Labour Council and the Labour Government, working together to back our high streets and local businesses. Whilst the Council cannot control every economic pressure facing businesses, we can create the conditions that help them succeed. Through Business North Tyneside, we provide free one-to-one business advice, workshops, grants and specialist support to help businesses start, grow and become more resilient. Alongside this, we continue to invest in town centres. Through the North Shields Master Plan and Regeneration Programme in Wallsend, we are creating attractive, vibrant places that encourage more people to visit, spend money locally and give businesses confidence to invest. We have also invested in shopfront improvement grants, town centre enhancements, decorative shutter schemes and a year-round programme of events designed to increase footfall and support local businesses. We are also working closely with the North East Mayoral Strategic Authority and Experience North East England to promote North Tyneside's coastline, town centres, hospitality businesses and visitor attractions to a wider audience, helping attract more visitors into the borough and supporting our local economy. Alongside the support being provided by the Council, we also welcome the action being taken by the Labour Government. The Prime Minister has announced a 20% cut in business rates for pubs, clubs and live music venues, action to reduce energy bills for businesses and the return of the national £2 bus fare cap. These measures will help reduce costs for businesses, put more money into people's pockets and make it easier and more affordable for customers to visit our town centres. Taken together, this demonstrates a clear commitment from Labour both at national and a local level to support our businesses, strengthen our town centres and in creating conditions for local businesses, including those in the hospitality sector, to thrive.
Supplementary question, Councillor Osborne.
Oh, great, yeah, and I really appreciate the work that Mr. Burnham's doing, so that's fantastic on the business rates. But just the question is, will the Cabinet Member or the Mayor consider, alongside the Chair of the Thriving Subcommittee, investigating what more the Council can do to support businesses, particularly hospitality?
Hospitality's businesses benefiting from a full range of support available for to businesses through Business North Tyneside, including one-to-one advice, grants and specialist business support. Alongside that, we're investing in improving the appearance of our town centres through shopfront improvement grants and decorative schemes, whilst delivering a year-round programme of events that attract thousands of visitors into our high streets. Through Experience North East England, we're also promoting North Tyneside's food, drink and visitor offer to the regional and national audiences, helping to bring more customers through doors of local hospitality businesses. As mentioned previously, the government has cut 20%, is cutting 20% for business rates for pubs, cafes and live music venues, action to reduce electricity bills and the return of the £2 bus fare cap, all which will encourage more people to shop in our town centres and to reduce costs for businesses. Ultimately, successful hospitality businesses need a thriving town centre with strong football, and that is exactly what we're delivering with our regeneration programme. And we'll look at more ways in which we can support local businesses across the borough.
Thank you, Councillor Gray. Councillor Bartoli.
Thank you. Residents rightly see the elected mayor attending many events to promote and celebrate the council's achievements, and we welcome your eagerness to champion positive news and recognise the good work carried out by council staff, volunteers and community organisations. However, when the council faces criticism, difficult decisions or significant failures, it's often senior council officers who are left to answer questions from the media and the public. As the directly elected mayor, do you believe it's your responsibility to be just as visible and accountable when the council gets things wrong as when it has good news to announce? And will you therefore commit to personally responding to significant council failings by making yourself available to the media, issuing statements to the press where appropriate, and answering questions from residents rather than leaving unelected council officers to speak on behalf of your administration?
Mayor Clark responding.
Yes, sorry. Thank you for the question, Councillor Bartoli. Well, firstly, as leader of North Tyneside Council, I would argue I am highly visible and accountable across all areas. Officers and elected members, as I'm sure you do know, have different but complementary roles when responding to the media and the public. Officers speak on issues where they hold delegated responsibility, where the matter is operational, or where they are best placed to explain the technical or legal detail. Members will speak on matters of a more strategic nature. Thank you.
Amendment question, Councillor Bartoli.
Thank you. And I thank you for the mayor for her response. And I welcome her commitment to being visible and accountable when her administration gets things wrong. And in that spirit, and on behalf of the numerous parents who have contacted me, will you now personally offer a full and unreserved apology to the parents of those children who had unsupervised contact with the former council employee and now convicted paedophile Mark Campbell, who were left to discover what had happened through social media and news reports rather than being informed directly by your administration as soon as he pleaded guilty?
Mayor Clark.
Thank you, Councillor Bartoli. I mean, given what I've just said, I would argue it was more appropriate that a senior officer did deal with the communications around this particular issue, but I actually warmly welcome the opportunity here this evening to make a very personal apology to all parents and carers who were involved in this particular case. Parents and carers have received a letter of apology from the council, which explains the reasoning behind that, so I don't intend to go into that here. But yes, my heartfelt apologies. Finding out about this case from social media before receiving written communication from the council is really disappointing, and I do fully appreciate and empathise with those parents and carers' concerns. As a mother and grandmother myself, I totally appreciate those concerns. However, I must emphasise North Tyneside Council did follow all legal and safeguarding policy and procedure in relation to this incident, including carrying out a DBS check on this particular employee before he came into post. And as I'm sure you do appreciate, employers can't know the intention of an employee to commit an offence if they don't have a previous criminal record or there's no record of previous offences. And unfortunately, a DBS check, which is the safeguarding check employers carry out, does not show intention. It only shows actual offence. So unfortunately and very sadly, we did have this incident, and I can only apologise. I will also state very clearly the case, whilst very concerning, did not involve any children in North Tyneside. We were not therefore really in a position to do anything to inform people until after the legal proceedings, by which time the information was out on social media faster than we responded in writing. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Bones.
Thank you. Can the Mayor confirm if any member has refused or returned their special responsibility allowance in the current municipal year?
Thank you for the question, Councillor Bones. No, I cannot. Members are entitled to receive the payments within the scheme agreed by full council, and as elected Mayor, I don't monitor whether or not any members have refused or returned the allowances to which they are entitled. Thank you.
Supplementary.
Yes, thank you. A recent Freedom of Information request revealed that no members have refused their SRA or returned their SRA in the current municipal year. Yet in the local elections just gone, Reform UK leaflets said, and I quote, Reform councillors refuse to accept this rise. Yet that Freedom of Information request has confirmed that Councillor Smith has indeed accepted the 235% pay rise worth almost £8,000. So does the Mayor agree with me that when councillors make claims in leaflets, they should keep their word and Councillor Smith should return that increase?
What I'd like to say, Councillor Bones, is I know you are well aware it is not appropriate for the council meeting to discuss the allowance of a named member or be seen to pressurising a member not to accept or to return an allowance which has been duly paid. Members are entitled to the payments within the scheme agreed by full council. At the end of this financial year, the authority will publish the total sum paid to each member in respect of a range of allowances, including special responsibility allowance, as is the Members' Allowance Regulations Authority requirement. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Bailey.
Thank you. Can the Mayor confirm, can the Mayor give an update on the situation on the River and Coast with regards to Nurdles?
Thank you for the question, Councillor Bailey. Like many of our residents, I am deeply concerned by the continuing situation on our beautiful coastline. Every high tide is bringing more nurdles onto our beaches, making an already difficult clean-up operation even more challenging. Since the issue first emerged, our council teams have been out every day clearing the affected beaches and have purchased additional specialist equipment to support that work. They will continue to do everything they can over the coming days, and I thank them for that. We also welcome the fact that the vessel has now been secured, a boom has been placed around it to prevent any further escape into the river, and specialist contractors have been appointed to support the clean-up. That additional resource is important given the scale of this challenge. I think what has become increasingly clear and increasingly frustrating for people is awaiting clearer leadership and communication from the Environment Agency. Residents quite rightly want to know whether it is safe to help, what the risks are, and how the clean-up is being coordinated. We need clearer and more timely information so local authorities, partner organisations and the public can respond with confidence. I know many people are eager to volunteer to help clean our beaches, and I want to thank everyone who has offered. Unfortunately, until the Environment Agency gives the all clear, we cannot encourage volunteers to take part. While the public health risk is understood to be low, there remain questions about what these pellets may have been exposed to in the water, and we must follow the expert advice until it is updated. We will continue pressing all agencies involved for clear information, proper coordination and a rapid clean-up. Our priority remains protecting our coastline, supporting our communities and ensuring everyone understands both the risks and the actions being taken to resolve this situation. Thank you.
Thank you. I visited the offices of the Environment Agency today together with Surfers Against Sewage. We delivered a sample of Tynemouth nurdles collected before the Environmental Agency block effectively on volunteering became widely known. Could the Mayor do all she can to convince the Environment Agency to allow Surfers Against Sewage to implement the same insured risk assessed structure that they've used before in our borough to support volunteers? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bailey. The short answer is yes, I will.
Thank you. That concludes the questions this evening. We now move on to Chair's announcements. So firstly, can I just say thank you to those new members in the chamber this evening for your contribution to council. It is a nerve-wracking thing to do, to speak in front of everybody. So well done and thanks for your contribution. But since becoming chair of the council, it's been a real privilege and an honour to represent our community at so many memorable and meaningful events. I've had the opportunity to take part in the Falklands War commemoration, reflecting on the courage and sacrifice of those who served. I've also had the pleasure of attending 2 citizenship ceremonies, welcoming new citizens as they begin an important new chapter in their lives. I was proud to officially open the Veterans Walkway in Whitley Bay, recognising the service and dedication of our Armed Forces veterans. Supporting our armed forces has been a recurring theme, from raising the flag in Sunderland for Armed Forces Day to attending North Tyneside Armed Forces Day celebrations. It was also a great honour to meet the Lord Lieutenant, who came to Quadrant to introduce herself and to give an explanation as to how the Lieutenant's office works. We also were invited on board HMS Tyne, gaining a real appreciation for the work carried out by those serving in the Royal Navy, who were also tailing a Russian ship who was down the North Sea, and then I think later let off munitions out just off the Portsmouth or Plymouth coastline. So well done to them. And they also told us that the HMS Tyne's being decommissioned next year, which is a real shame. One of the highlights for me, though, was presenting awards to the wonderful young people at Southland School. Seeing their achievements celebrated and sharing in their excitement was truly amazing, in a moment I will treasure. It was really heartwarming. I've also enjoyed representing the council at civic events, including attending the Mayoress at Home function in South Shields, which provided another opportunity to strengthen the relationships between our neighbouring communities. And these are just some of the many experiences I've been fortunate to share since becoming chair. And each event has reinforced how proud I am to represent our borough and the incredible people who make it such a special place. Thank you very much. And we now move on to elected mayor's announcements. Mayor Clark.
Thank you, Chair. Hopefully my voice will last for this this section. Thank you. I'd like to begin by saying congratulations to Andy Burnham as our new Prime Minister. I look forward to working with the new Prime Minister and government to support delivery of our ambitions for North Tyneside. Since we last met at Annual Council in May, I've continued to spend time out and about in our communities, engaging with residents, businesses and local organisations across the borough, listening to their experiences of life in our borough and discussing issues important to them. I've continued to engage and support the business community to maximise opportunities for business growth, investment and creation of good quality jobs. This included a recent visit to Shepherd's Offshore to discuss opportunities the transition to green energy is bringing for business growth and development in North Tyneside and along the wider Tyne Economic Corridor. I recently hosted a North Tyneside business breakfast event, the first in a series of planned breakfast events, which provided an excellent opportunity to engage with many more additional local businesses and seek their support in shaping the future of North Tyneside through development of our economic strategy and our place-based vision. It also enabled us to highlight the range of business support, skills and employment services available through the council, and to discuss how we can continue working together to support economic growth, develop local talent and create real meaningful opportunities for our residents. I had the pleasure of officially launching the new Wallsend Youth Hub, which is one of 80 new DWP youth hubs being launched across the country. The youth hub's been integrated into our existing and highly successful Working Well Hub model, which is based at Wallsend Library. It will be open 3 days a week, offering bespoke, holistic support to young people from the whole of North Tyneside. I'm delighted also that North Tyneside is one of 20 local authorities across the country participating in the government's new national pilot programme, Work It Out. The pilot has been introduced to test out a new structured community-based approach to support young people into work and strengthen communities. I also attended the recent Working Well Showcase event, bringing together partners, employers and residents to celebrate the incredible success of the multi-agency Working Well model in supporting thousands of our residents of all ages to overcome barriers and connect to job opportunities, training and support. My ongoing engagement with community groups and organisations included a visit to the Phoenix Detached Youth Project in North Shields, a fantastic charity delivering vital support to vulnerable young people. And it was a real privilege to meet the team and to talk to young people who shared their inspirational stories and incredible achievements. I also visited the amazing team and service users at Live Well with Cancer, and from their hub in North Shields Town Centre, they provide invaluable support to people and families affected by cancer. I had a fun visit to the Healthy for Life Festival at the Park Sports Centre, fabulous event promoting healthy lifestyles and physical activity, and it was wonderful to see around 350 children from local schools taking part, and they even helped me send a good luck message to the England football team. I officially opened the annual North Tyneside Together event at Northumberland Square. It's a vibrant, family-friendly celebration of our diverse communities, and it's great to see the strength of partnership working that is displayed at that event. It was a privilege to march in the community parade at the Shimoan District Children's Treat, a spectacular event rooted in the rich history and heritage of the local area. Well done to everyone for keeping this important annual event going for 119 years. Incredible. I also attended North Tyneside Disabilities Forum annual show at the Playhouse in Whitley Bay. Fabulous, joyful evening of entertainment and celebration of inclusion. Really incredible, talented people. I had the privilege of visiting Tynemouth RNLI to see the new lifeboat and meet the crew. The bravery and dedication of the volunteer crews is truly humbling, and their long history of service, marked by 22 medals for gallantry, I'm sure you will all agree, speaks volumes about their commitment to saving lives. We had an incredibly successful Mouth of Tyne Festival again this year, which continues to be one of our region's flagship events. The festival delivers significant boost to the local economy, generates millions of pounds for local businesses while showcasing our borough on a national and international stage with world-class acts performing against the stunning backdrop of Tynemouth Priory. I was delighted to meet children and community groups taking part in the Mouth of Tyne Festival parade, an amazing display of colourful costumes and live music. The festival brings together thousands of people to celebrate culture, community and everything that makes North Tyneside such a special place to live, work and visit. A couple of just quick announcements. The big community conversation is already underway and will continue over the summer months. The team is out and about across the borough talking to residents about key issues and asking what people would like North Tyneside to look and feel like in the future. That information will help inform development of our North Tyneside place-based vision. North East Mayoral Strategic Authority is currently undertaking consultation on bus reform. It's about bringing buses back into public control. It's currently open until 9 AM on the 28th of September. It is a really important issue for North Tyneside, so please don't miss the opportunity to have your say. There should be a link available through the North East Mayoral Strategic Authority website. On a more sombre note, I was deeply honoured to attend the funeral of PC Jessica Turnbull, who was 19 years of age and was tragically killed in the line of duty. My heartfelt condolences go to Jessica's family and her police colleagues. I was also shocked to hear recently about the death of former MP Anne Widdecombe, who was horrifically murdered in her own home. Absolutely horrific crime, and my condolences go to Anne's family. It was also really sad to hear about the death of Kevin Keegan, King Kevin, as he's fondly known by many in our region, and a real football legend. And again, my sincere condolences go to Kevin's family. This is a final note, I promise. I would like you to join me in thanking John Sparks, our Director of Regeneration, for all of his hard work as he prepares to retire from North Tyneside Council. John is with us in the chamber tonight. John has dedicated many years of service to North Tyneside and has played a pivotal role in delivering some of the borough's most significant regeneration projects. His vision, leadership and unwavering commitment have helped transform our towns, our coastline and our communities. John has overseen our ambitious regeneration master plans for North Shields and Wallsend, as well as our work on ambition for the northwest of the borough. helping to transform some of our key town centres and neighbourhoods and give them a new lease of life. His team have built on the success of Mouth of the Tyne Festival, which this year brought an estimated £1 million into the local economy. They made sure the North Shields 800 celebrations lit up the town in 2025, working with the North Shields 800 committee and more than 50 local partners and groups with ongoing work supported by North Shields Cultural Quarter. And in terms of economic development, the success of Business North Tyneside and the amazing work it does to support and attract small and medium-sized enterprises, as well as some of our biggest employers. He also overseen the creation of the safer and sustainable route, the restoration of St Mary's Lighthouse, and brought our highways team back in-house, resulting in a hugely improved level of service. The lasting legacy of these achievements can be seen across North Tyneside and will continue to benefit residents for many years to come. On behalf of North Tyneside Council, I would like to place on record our sincere gratitude for John's dedication, professionalism and service, and wish John well for his future. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, everybody. That concludes this evening's business, and the next council meeting is on September the 24th. So thank you and good night.
Please be upstanding for the chair.